It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
This is around the time before the trade deadline when things really pick up. For better or worse, as an industry, everybody seems to push most of the business into the last couple days, and that's where we're at. So that is definitely something that you could feel it. You could start to feel it a little bit later last night, and now you can feel it this morning. We're going to be working the phones pretty good between now and tomorrow evening.
You feel that, T-Bone? You feel those trade winds a-blowing?
I do. I can feel it in my hair.
I walked out on the patio this
windows
morning.
Windows open. What was your cup of coffee?
Oh yeah, my robe, and just a breeze went right through it. And I said, it's going to be a crazy day.
That might be a little chilly for the morning.
It didn't have any boxes on. It usually does it in this one. With Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, which you might be wondering, why the hell is Bradford Bruns in on trade deadline day? Well, you know by now, if you follow us on Twitter, at BK Sports Talk, at T-Bone, at Ferrario 101 ESPN, the BKO struck again. Brandon Kiley was very confident he'd be back for the show and the Redbird Report trade deadline show later on tonight. And then, of course, at about 11 o'clock last night, his plane couldn't get off the runway. They said that they were going to be fine. The engine turned off. He got a hotel, and he's stuck in an airport in the U.S. somewhere today. So that's why Bradford came in to save the day, as we are with you on the day of the trade deadline in Major League Baseball. And that audio courtesy of KMOX Sports. Hein Bloom was on Sunday with Tom Ackerman talking about the trade winds continuing to pick up. And T-Bone, we left the show on Friday calling our shot, saying how many players would be traded off of this roster. I think BK had said 2 guys. I don't remember if you said 1 or 2.
I said 2. I figured a bullpen arm and May. I those
said
2
Dustin
would be
gone. May. That was it, because I assumed they would try and make those roster moves. I didn't think they'd want to DFA somebody to put Quinn Mathews on the roster. They did so with Tim Kent. We'll talk about that later. No moves have been made by the Cardinals. While Major League Baseball has started to ramp up, the Cardinals remain patient to see what's out there. And I found myself saying this last night, and I found it again when I woke up this morning. How crazy is the day going to be for the Cardinals? Because they've got everything from the reporting, the incredible reporting by Derek Gould, our Cardinals insider who joins us every Tuesday here on BK and Ferrario, his work over at the Post-Dispatch. Tons of teams have shown interest in Lars Nootbaar, in Dustin May, in their bullpen arms. They've called about the catchers. The Cardinals have everything. John Morosi reported earlier today, our favorite who loves to throw at the wall, that Cardinals first base / outfielder Alec Burleson is one of the most popular controllable bats on the trade market. Last week, Mark Feinsand talked about how much there's interest in all of the catchers in the Cardinals organization. The fact that they haven't pulled anything off yet surprises me, but also doesn't surprise me, because the Cardinals seem like they're the team that people know they're selling, we'll call unless we strike out with some of these other options. But man, this is a lot of work for Hein Bloom to do within the next 6 hours.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised they didn't get May done or a bullpen arm done over the weekend, but based on all the reporting that's out there, I think you kind of spelled it out perfectly there. It seems most of what the Cardinals have from the rentals perspective is fallback options for teams. It seems like Dustin May is going to be traded today. I'd be shocked if he's a Cardinal by the time we get to 5 o'clock today when the deadline ends. But it seems like we're still waiting on a couple names to fall off the board, right? Casey Mize is out there from the Detroit Tigers. Robbie Ray is out there from the San Francisco Giants. San Diego, Philadelphia. I think the White Sox still want to add starting pitching. So I think May will be dealt, but it seems like you've still got more dominoes to fall before we get there. I'm shocked by this report from John Morosi that's coming out that apparently Burley's name is supposedly out there. Now, I would take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, because you're right, Morosi does kind of throw stuff at the wall, but he's hearing it from somebody. Now, my guess on that is teams are checking in and Heim is saying, yeah, no, we're not trading Burley unless you're giving us the Godfather offer. That would be my read on the situation. But I do expect that Nootbaar is going to be dealt today. And I actually think they're going to have a bidding war between the Padres and the Astros. Apparently, those two teams are looking for a left fielder. Nootbaar's like the only guy out there, unless you're looking for a right-handed bat. If that's the case, you can go shopping for a rental. But I think the Padres and Angels are going to be on Nootbaar. And then, of course, we're going to see them probably make a move at the catcher position. I think it's going to be a very active day for the Cardinals here in the final 6 hours leading up to the deadline. My biggest question, though, how much are they really going to move off of, right? If they move off from the rentals and that's it, that wouldn't be shocking at all. I don't expect them to be making anything.
Is that a failure of a deadline, though?
I don't know if I'd say it's a failure just because I wonder about how much they actually have or how good the offers are that are coming in.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think a failure of the deadline would be not moving off from like JoJo Romero or Ryan Stanek, guys that have some value out there on the market. That would be a mistake. If they hang on to their controllable bats, I think those are moves that you can get done in theory in the offseason. So I wouldn't say it's a failure, but it would be disappointing.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair response with that one. I personally look at it as I think it would be disappointing if they don't move off of Dustin May. We'll talk more about that as we move on with this one. The Burleson one doesn't surprise me at all with the report. I think you nailed what that is we'll move him, but you're going to give us something that helps us now if we're trading Alec Burleson, and I don't think teams are going to do that right now, or helps us now with top prospects coming into our system. The Newbar one from Derek Gould's reporting, Houston Astros had shown interest. The Phillies were in attendance before that homestand wrapped up, kind of scouting the Cardinals. Now the Phillies made a move earlier today for Luis Arraez, and they're shifting around their entire roster. Bryce Harper's moving to the outfield, so that may take them out of that market. And the Yankees had shown interest in Lars Nootbaar. So that's just it. I don't know how much and how different this Cardinals team is going to look. I know you guys talked about this on the Redbird Report in the newest episode. I'm viewing this as the Cardinals see Baez, Bernal, Motts, and Dobbins as pieces that should be up at the major league level now towards the end of the season. And if that's the case, I'm looking at saying, okay, you're moving off of one, maybe two pitchers. You're moving off of a catcher, probably Pages, and then you're moving off of the outfielder, which would be Lars Nootbaar. All of those make the most sense for this Cardinals team. I guess the question that comes with that is, how realistic is it that a team is going to pay the price that Heim's looking for? Because the prices that have been out there so far around the trade deadline, it hasn't been blown your socks off. It hasn't been overwhelming. And you look at where Heim is at in his position with a lot of these pieces that are controllable, with the exception of Stanek and JoJo Romero. He's going to have the price set high for these pieces because he knows what their value is, and he's viewing this as a long-term solution for the Cardinals. So it was kind of the same sentiment I had with Brendan Donovan in the offseason. You want to move it, but how bad do you want to move it if the prices aren't going to match what you're looking for? And that's where the question comes into, how much of a sell-off are you really going to see with this Cardinals team?
Yeah, and on the catcher front, real quick, a report from John Heyman and Mark Feinstein and Joel Sherman, the three of them, Red Sox and Orioles, talking seriously about Adley Rutschman, of course, the switch-in and catcher from the Baltimore Orioles. That's probably the first domino that has to fall in that catcher's market.
Yeah.
Once he gets moved or we find out, hey, nobody was willing to meet the Orioles' asking price and they're just going to hang on to him and settle this in the offseason, that's when you start to see the pivot towards, hey, St. Louis, what are you willing to trade from that position? What would it take to get an Ivan Herrera? Okay, that's too pricey. We'll talk to you about Pedro Pages or Jimmy Crooks. That's the first piece. Seeing that report from John Heyman tells me, okay, that's the piece you're waiting on in the catcher's market. And that goes to our point on your question on the sell-off here. I think it just depends on, do you get someone that is going to be desperate to trade for some of those controllable bats? Maybe not so much on the Nootbaar front. I think when you're talking about a position player, a left-handed bat that can hit leadoff, that's above league average outfielder, those guys don't go for a ton. He'll probably be dealt, but I think it's more of the Cardinals are willing to sit in the weeds and see, okay, is somebody going to get desperate to trade for Ivan Herrera or get desperate to kind of make that Godfather offer for Burley if they view that as the last piece to their team? But I think they're still waiting on a lot of dominoes to fall. And I think that report on Rutschman is just the latest of one of them that they're looking to. But I think you're right on those AAA guys. I think they're hoping they can make some of these moves so they can get a 2-month sample size for a Joshua Baez, for a Leo Bernal, for Bryson Motts to potentially be coming out of the bullpen. Maybe even more, it wouldn't be a sample run, but it'd be more of potentially of a bigger role for Hunter Dobbins since he's clearly earned one at this point. I do think they're going to try and make something happen. That way they can get those guys up here for the second half. In a second half that is really going to be about development, not the playoff race that they are technically still in. Well,
and in some of these moves that we've seen already, you see the return. You saw it for Jose Soriano earlier today. He got multiple prospects, an infielder, an outfielder, and a pitcher. Freddie Peralta was moved, who got an outfielder, a right-handed pitcher, and an infielder. So then the question comes up, what are they targeting at this deadline? Because we talked a little bit this week, T-Bone, of asking if the Cardinals were looking more for guys that you're going to take chances on. The third baseman from the Red Sox was somebody we brought up. And then, of course, you're talking about these top prospects. You just don't see a whole lot of top 100 prospects get moved. And when it comes to the pieces that the Cardinals are offering up, I think in all intents purposes for where this Cardinals team is at, I think they're targeting guys that are at the AAA level or close to the major league level that they can dream on. And frankly, as much as we think the Cardinals want more pitching, I really wonder if they're targeting position players, specifically the holes in their roster, which is third base and center field.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wonder if they're going to try and target, to your point, on position player prospect return, guys that are closer, right? AAA, maybe a guy that's like on the fringe from AA to AAA, and then maybe some of the secondary pieces in those deals are pitching prospects that are maybe at the lower levels, right? So you can kind of, as we know, that next wave is kind of coming. You're starting to see it. I mean, Quinn Mathews' debut over the weekend, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, but Quinn Mathews, Senja, Doyle, Tanner Franklin, you've got Robing when he returns from his injury. Those are 5 guys that are fairly close for the St. Louis Cardinals. Now you're looking for that other wave behind them, right? Because you can never have enough pitching prospects to come through your pipeline. So I wouldn't doubt that they do that as well, of position players that are closer to the majors in the returns with maybe pitchers that are a little bit further away.
So we will keep you abreast of everything today. There's 280 of you with us on YouTube over at 101 ESPN STL, so keep them coming. We're going to keep this rolling on. By the way, BK is on the YouTube chat. He's trying to connect to the air link. So maybe we'll get an update from whatever airport he is stuck in right now before he gets on his next flight. But you can join us over on our YouTube channel, our studio cams, brought to you by the Air Alliance team. Always jump in on the YouTube or the chat line. The Air Comfort Service text line is 314-399-9646. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15 minutes, the Dodgers, they did it again. And maybe they might be helping the salary cap situation, T-Bone. We'll talk about that and how that may impact the Cardinals' decisions at the deadline. But coming up next, Quinn Mathews made his debut over the weekend. What did we think on that one? And Liberatore might be back for round 2 next here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
picture. The real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
And a swing and a miss. He gets Okamoto. There's his first big league strikeout. High heat for out number 2. Swing and a miss. There's the curveball. He has used that very sparingly today, but picked a great time to use it for the 9th place batter.
So we predicted what we thought Quinn Mathews' debut was going to look like, and I'd say right in line with what we thought, along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. That audio courtesy of Cardinals TV. Quinn Mathews in his start on August 1st against Toronto. He gave them 5 innings of work, had 6 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts through a total of 97 pitches, with 63 of those being strikes. And T-Bone, I didn't walk away from that start feeling like, hot damn, they found their next ace. The swing and miss stuff was there a little bit. It wasn't significant. The command, at times, you could tell he struggled with, but it was right what I expected with Quinn Mathews. You were going to give them 5 to 6 innings. You were going to give up a few hits, give up a few runs, see the swing and miss stuff, and then from there you say, cool, something to build off of. And that's fine for this Cardinals team. Would it be great for him to come up and be overwhelmingly awesome and think that, my God, they found another one? Sure. I don't think that's the start of this swing and miss era that Hein Bloom and the Cardinals are trying to develop in their pipeline, but it was something different. And I think for what Cardinals fans have dealt with over the last few seasons, I'm sure that was a refreshing sign to see Quinn Mathews on the mound, all of the time invested throughout his development. Now you get to see it at the major league level, and you walked away from it saying, yeah, he fits.
Yeah, I was really impressed by his stuff. Now, he had a lot of traffic, kind of like you said, we expected that, 9 base runners in 5 innings. But he was able to generate 12 swing and misses. And how about this? Only 4 hard hit balls off of him in that contest. I mean, that's really good stuff that you're generating that much swing and miss, and there's not a lot of hard contact against you. I loved what his fastball looked like and the way it played with the changeup. Early on in that outing, you could tell there were some uncomfortable swings by the Toronto Blue Jays. The big question for him, as he will continue to develop over the next 2 months and probably over the next year or two as a starter for the Cardinals, is can he really hone in that command? That way he's limiting walks and not falling behind in counts, which can be a problem for him at times, as we saw at the AAA level. But, man, you couldn't have asked for a better debut for one of those prospects that we talked about as someone that was maybe the most hyped prospect pitching debut since what?
Been a while.
Flaherty, Weaver, one of those guys.
I think Weaver probably was around it.
And that's been like 5 to 7 years at this point. Like, yeah. I was very impressed, and I get the upside hype around him. I'm excited to see what he will look like if they keep him up here for the next 2 months, which I think they're going to, because you can see that stuff plays here at the major league level. Now, I'll be curious to know what he looks like against a team that doesn't struggle against lefties. As we talked about going into that weekend series against Toronto, they're the worst team in baseball against left-handed pitching. So seeing them struggle against a lefty wasn't that surprising, but I won't take anything away from Quinn being successful against them, because I think his success was based on his stuff alone, the way he was able to throw his 4 pitches. So call me really impressed by the way he looked over the weekend, and I'm excited to see what he looks like the rest of the way.
Do you remember what Michael McGreevy's debut looked like?
I do not. I'm assuming it was very similar.
It was pretty sweet. The Texas game, correct?
Yeah, it was Texas back in 2024. It was July 31st. And now he
debuted in 24.
Yeah, he was not as hyped as what Quinn Mathews was. We've already talked about that. But
he was nails.
He went 7 innings, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, and 3 strikeouts against Texas in 2024, which at the time was a damn good baseball team. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is I came away from that one more hyped for McGreevy than I was after Quinn Mathews. Now, maybe it was the team he was going up against, and maybe it was because the swing and miss stuff was so hyped up in my eyes that it was like, oh, yeah, this guy's going to come up. Now, I had to temper it, but I will admit it's hard to stay calm when you get excited for prospects. So I've
never gotten overexcited for any prospect before.
No, never, not at all. Did you see Blake Snell, by the way, in Quinn Mathews over the weekend? Did you see a little Blake Snell in there?
Bit.
Did you?
What I mean, and again, I didn't mean he was going to be Blake Snell. What I meant was more of that profile of walks a lot of guys, but strikes out a lot of guys.
That was the thing for me. At least you saw the potential of the swing and miss. And the more you watched it, the more you thought about how the Cardinals pitching staff has worked with guys and developed them over time. You know, you go back to with Jordan Hicks to where he went from one end of the spectrum to the other, and he turned him into a really valuable player for them. You look at what some of these other guys, Michael McGreevy, for example, has done. That's what gets you excited because the swing and miss stuff is there. The changeup, the curve, all of those pitches are the get you swinging out of your shoes types of swings or pitches. Now it's just adding on to it. And that's where I came away from it saying, you know what? That was fine. All I wanted to see was that you belonged at the major league level, and now you build from that. And I had zero questions about that after a start, T-Bone. I never once said, he needs more time in the minors.
100%. And the one thing that stuck, I'm glad you said McGreevy, because I thought this in the moment, and it kind of slipped my mind until you said McGreevy. It reminded me of McGreevy on the mound, and what I mean by that is just the presence, right? He'd be in trouble, and you'd have no idea, right? If, I took off the little score bug that they put in that right-hand corner, and you said, man, this guy looks really cool, calm, collected. There must be nobody on base. And then we zoomed the camera out first and second. He gave up a hit and a walk, and you go, I had no idea because he looked so calm the entire time. It reminded me of McGreevy's presence on the mound. Not so much the stuff, because the stuff is better from Quinn Mathews, in my opinion, than McGreevy's. But it did remind me of seeing a guy that goes up there and, doesn't look out of place. You know, there's times when we see Liberatore pitching, and I go, boy, this guy looks uncomfortable out there on the mound. And I'm not just saying that because he's sweating a lot. He just looks uncomfortable. He looks almost kind of timid or scared of what he's going to be throwing into the zone. I never felt that for a moment with Quinn Mathews over the weekend.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Matthew Liberatore because...
how about Libby?
You think he's going to get another start, T-Bone?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Something was different. Yeah,
Liberatore, he went up against a team that is terrible against left-handed pitchers.
Bingo, last place.
6 innings of work, 1 hit, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts.
We all thought the same thing.
Yeah, Matthew Liberatore was really good in that start. Not at once did I say, oh, man, he's fixed. But I do think that earns him another start. So whatever happens today with Dustin May, I wonder if Hunter Dobbins still gets the call up because that 15-day waiting period, because of sending him down, it gets kind of negated if you make the trade of Dustin May to bring him up. I don't think Liberatore's going out of the bullpen going into the bullpen right away, because I think a start like that earns you another opportunity. And I just don't believe the Cardinals, whether it's Ollie, whether it's Heim, are actively trying to move him out of the rotation yet. Now, that could change the next time he goes 3 2/3 and gives up 8 hits. But after a start like that, sure, it was against a team that was terrible against lefties. I think he goes right back out there 5 days from now and makes his next start.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're going to just run it back with him. Now what I wonder about this is, okay, if you trade Dustin May today, which I'm expecting, that basically is now just Quinn Mathews' spot, right? You keep him up here, you stick with the 5-man rotation. What do you do if you keep Libby in the rotation? Do you not call up Hunter Dobbins, or do they potentially have another move up their sleeves, right? Is it possible that maybe they listen on their controllable starters, like Andre Palante, for example? Could you flip him to somebody that's looking for controllable pitching? One team to keep an eye on now. I don't think they would make the buying move, but apparently the Rangers are looking for controllable arms. Now, they want to do that by trading Mackenzie Gore. I don't know if the Cardinals are going to be that aggressive to make that move, but it is something to keep an eye on. Teams are trying to target controllable arms. The San Diego Padres, they seem desperate for a starter. If they miss out on some rentals, I wonder if you see Preller pivot and say, all right, maybe we didn't get to May in time. Let's call about Andre Palante. Let's see if we can get an arm that could be in our rotation for next year. Their rotation, just to give you context, Michael King's gone 6 innings or more 14 times.
Wow.
The rest of the rotation has done it 9 in total. That's 4 other guys in the rotation that aren't accomplishing that. So there might be a market for a Palante. I'm with you, though. I think they're going to keep Libby in here, and the only way for them to free up a spot for Dobbins, I think, is if they trade one of those controllable arms.
I'll be fascinated to see if they get calls on Palante, or even a guy like Kyle Leahy, who has been awesome over his last 5 to 7 starts. I mean, you see Jose Soriano go, you see guys that have controllable, that are pitchers that are getting moved. I do wonder if teams are calling the Cardinals and try and kind of push them over the edge a little bit to make some type of move.
When are we going to start to discuss the innings for the record? Look, Leahy, let's be very clear about this. The Cardinals trio of starters, very good at the Rogers Center over the weekend, now at 107, and yet he's performing better than he has at any point previously this year. At what point do we enter into the conversation about, tapering off the starts or trying to rearrange that in a manner of speaking?
They may try that a little bit down the stretch, like insert Dobbins, for example, if you don't already have him up here in the rotation, just to kind of skip a start for Leahy.
Out of necessity.
expectation, though, is I don't think they're going to do that. I mean, I haven't heard them talking about it. Now, to be fair, I don't know if they've been asked a lot about that since the deadline's been going on over the last 2 weeks. But they never really were concerned about innings for Matthew Liberatore last year. Now, he had been a starter more recent than Kyle Leahy. But Leahy doesn't look doesn't look tired, doesn't look weary, doesn't look like his stuff is diminishing. In fact, his stuff looks better.
Yeah.
And
He's getting stronger.
On the broadcast, Danny Luxman had said she talked to him, and he said, hey, look, I kind of don't want this season to end because I'm getting stronger now. I was like, hold on, cowboy. But I don't think they're going to put any limitations on Leahy down the home stretch unless things change, right? I mean, that could change. If he looks bad over the next 2 or 3 starts, they may say, hey, look, innings might be catching up to him, but I'm not expecting that today.
We've already seen Ollie prioritize fatigue for players that are honest with him. That's why they skipped those starts before the All-Star break. That's why he's plucked guys out of the lineup. So he values what the players are telling them. And if Kyle Leahy comes to him and says, I'm fine, I don't need to worry about this, I believe Ollie is going to side with the player. And in his last 7 starts, 37 in the third innings, 5 earned runs, 32 strikeouts, 9 walks. That's good for a 1.2 ERA. You don't worry about workload for that guy right now if he's feeling fine. And for the Cardinals, I don't listen on that player right now as much as I'm listening on an Andre Pallante, because Pallante's been just as good as Leahy, but Leahy's just in a little bit of a different position than where you've seen it for a few years of Andre Pallante. So it'll be fascinating to see what that looks like and what this Cardinals roster looks like before their game. They start up a 3-game series in New York against the Yankees tonight at 6:05. By the way, you'll be able to hear BK, we hope, and T-Bone, and Bradford, he'll be here as well. A Redbird Report live trade deadline show from 6 to 7 o'clock, reacting to all of the trades around Major League Baseball, including the moves that the Cardinals make right here on 101 ESPN and up on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. So make sure you're checking in on that later on this evening. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get to some of your questions over on our text line. I don't know why I just had a brain fart there. Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. Also our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. You send us your questions. We'll answer them in 15. But coming up next, Tarek Skubal went to the Dodgers. And boy, are people fired up on that one. They did it again, and they might be helping us get a salary cap. We'll talk about that and a little bit more next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Where your pivots are going. You know, Tyler Stevenson will be one from Cincinnati. I'm sure you'll see the Yankees and the Rays check in on him. That's probably the only catcher that I would say is expected to be moved if you're looking for someone that's got some offensive upside, right? If you're looking for a guy like Ivan Herrera that's got offensive upside, that makes sense. But if you want to trade for Pedro Paez, you're just getting a defensive specialist, and I don't know if those teams are going to want those kind of guys.
Yeah, well, and that's the real question, I guess, because these guys that have been moved, they play a position. And does a team look at Herrera and say, well, we don't know if he's a catcher for us. Do they have the spot at the DH? Can you move that? The other note that we'll talk about a little bit later on from Ken Rosenthal and Jim Bowden, it sounds like the Mariners are willing to listen on George Kirby as well as Emerson Hancock. So does that team come calling for the right-handed bat to put into their roster and are willing to move off of that top pitcher? So we'll keep you notified as things move along here on BK and Ferrario. Trade deadline at 5 o'clock this afternoon. The Fast Lane will be walking you up all the way to that. And then later on this evening at 6, the Redbird Report trade deadline show here on 101 ESPN with Tanner and BK. Coming up next, we'll get to your questions, 314-399-9646. You can also do so over on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. Send us your questions. We'll answer them next here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Be a part of the show. Text the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation text line at 314-399-9646 on 101 ESPN.
Heim's been on the phone probably all morning, right? I mean, we saw Buster Posey pull a trade off at like 6:45 this morning Pacific time. So these front offices have been working the phones constantly. I'm not worried about it. I won't worry about it till we get about 10 minutes before the deadline ends at 5 o'clock. And if we haven't heard anything by then I'll have some concerns.
Yeah, now what you don't want to happen is what happened with the Maple Leafs, where they didn't get the deal in before the buzzer went off and then their deal went dead. That's what you don't want to happen. I don't think Heim will have that problem from that. So this one from the 314, why should any of these teams make deals now when they don't know what the next Major League Baseball contract will be? I mean, one, you're making the deals now because the teams that are trying to buy, you're going to try and win the World Series. But on the flip side of it, I think you try and extract as much as possible. The more prospects you put in your system, correct me if I'm wrong here, T-Bone, but if they're not at the Major League level or on the 40-man, they're still available to play next year if there's a lockout in the minor leagues.
Yeah, the minor leagues will go on next year,
so
even if a lockout.
If you get a AA or a AAA player that's a highly touted prospect, there's development that still takes place for your system, which honestly, if there's a salary cap, that's an upper hand that some of those teams are going to have, because now you have more development for your prospects rather than guys that are at the Major League level that aren't available to play.
Yeah, I think a lot of these executives are going to operate as if, hey, I can't operate on a season's not going to be played next year. I have to operate as if things are going to go as normal, or as if they're going to get this figured out before next season now. Because otherwise, like, teams that are high up in salary, you'd think they'd be dumping salary because they'd be afraid a cap was coming. I think you can't operate that way if you're an executive, because then you're going to miss out on the market, because guess what? The other 29 teams are going to operate like there's nothing going on. So I think you have to operate that way. To your point, though, minor leaguers will be able to play through it if they're not on the 40-man roster, so you can take that with what you will. I do wonder if you're going to see more controllable assets get moved than normal at the deadline, and I think that could be because of the fact that there could be a lockout. You know, we brought this up last week. 2022 was the last time that we had a lockout that extended pretty far into the offseason. I think it was December 1st they locked the players out, so there was like less than a month for the offseason to really get going. Then it was a lockout ensued December 1st, and they didn't get going until basically spring training. So not a lot was able to get done, right? There weren't a ton of big trades that happened that offseason. So I wonder if teams with controllable assets like Nootbaar, for example, typically, I think an executive, or I would even be sitting here today going, hey, you don't have to make this trade. It would be fine if you don't, because you can get this done in the offseason. I don't know that you can get that move done in the offseason. So I think that's why you're going to see more controllable pieces get moved. But I don't think teams are going to be hesitant to make moves because of the lockout in terms of being willing to buy pieces.
From the 309, what is a trade that you remember the Cardinals or Blues making that you did not like? Or what is a trade that you wish the Cardinals Blues had made from the past? Anything stand out to you on that one? I don't know. Trades that I didn't like. I don't know if anything really stands out to me in terms of trades that I didn't like. I feel like both sides.
I remember not being thrilled about the Letty deal, and then it got worse when they picked him over Perron. Because at the time I thought, this is an average defenseman. Sure, he moves the puck, but it's like getting socks for Christmas.
Yeah. I mean,
sure, I needed them. I'd had holes, but I could have worn my holy socks.
It made sense. You're right. The bigger frustration was the extension over Perron. The trade at the time was like, I would have liked a better one, but you still got a defenseman in return. I think at the time I didn't like the TJ Oshie trade. At the time, I didn't like the Ben Bishop trade, but like you're going way back in the tank. Like in the last 10 years, I don't know if I can really think of trades by the Cardinals that I didn't like. Dylan Carlson, you just needed to trade him. Tyler O'Neill. I think I'm more frustrated at the Cardinals of trades they didn't make when they should have versus trades that they made that I was upset that they made.
Yeah,
if that
honestly,
makes sense.
There's not many trades that I can think of that like I would have said, yeah, the Cardinals should have done that. Most of the time, I'm more of a, okay, I would have had interest in it, but I get why you don't do it. Like Jose Soriano, right? It probably would have been Joshua Baez and two of your like lottery ticket prospects to get him today, who, as he was traded for a top 50 prospect and 2 lottery tickets to the Blue Jays today. I would have had interest in that, but I can understand why the Cardinals wouldn't, right? Baez, close to the majors. If you trade Nootbaar, bring up Baez. He's got unbelievable power, so I can see why you bet on it. The ones that I get more frustrated by are the signings that I see like the Cardinals do. I've been more frustrated by that when they said, hey, we're going to go pitching. I'm thinking, all right, they're going to get like an ace, and then they're going to get like a good number 3, and they went, how about you take Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson? I'm like, oh my God, that's not going to work, and I knew it from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And like then BK would try and convince me of, well, you know, they said they ran the numbers. I don't care what numbers they ran. Those guys aren't going to get you to the playoffs.
Hey, let Mo cook in L.A. He's been on one over the last 24 to 36 hours.
He basically told everybody. He did what Doug has done in the past, where he said all of you are getting traded, but he's like actually following through with everyone being traded off off of that roster. Final one here from the 573. Who says no? Cardinals trade May, Burleson, and Romero to acquire Gage Wood and Aiden Miller, the number 1 and number 2 prospects in the Phillies system. I would say the Phillies.
I would say probably us.
You think so?
That's a lot of.
I don't know who these. This is the thing about this trade deadline. I can tell you every prospect in every NHL system. Baseball is not the strong suit, so I go to T-Bone side of this one.
For 1 and 2, how does that make any sense from the Phillies' standpoint?
Well,
irrespective of this season down the stretch, you're talking about rentals to that degree. Besides maybe a Burleson, you're willing to give up 1 and 2. I don't envision that sort of package working from the Philly side.
It was Gage Wood and who?
Aiden Miller, their shortstop.
Man,
that's their 2 top 50 prospects. Would come your way.
2 first-round picks, too.
Yeah. I think the team that says no is probably Philadelphia.
I do, too. I don't think the Phillies are actively going after Burleson.
I don't know where they would play Burley. That's the tough part.
Harper's going to the outfield.
Yeah.
First base is now going to be Alec Boehm.
You give up that sort of package, he has to become a cornerstone for your team.
Yeah.
And I don't
You'd probably have to take on the Boehm contract if you do that, which I don't think the Cardinals would be opposed to.
I don't think you have to take on the contract. I think because Dombrowski's so desperate. If Dombrowski is as desperate as BK thinks he is, I'm not convinced that he's there. But if he is, he'd be willing to part with these guys in a heartbeat. I just don't think they will do that because it's their best prospect assets. And I think if they're going to hold on to those guys, they're going to hope to make something with them happen in the offseason.
Well, and they just acquired Luis Arise, so they have a bat. They acquired a pitcher, Brooks Raley, in the bullpen. So, I don't think JoJo Romero is necessary for him. So, I just don't think the Phillies make sense anymore, other than them going after Dustin May. That makes sense. The question will be, do they want Dustin May, and how much are they willing to pay for it if the Cardinals are valuing that fairly high? So that's Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario, BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Hey, in 15 minutes, we'll get more into Dustin May because we saw a trade go down over the weekend that kind of puts it into perspective what you're getting back for Dustin May. And the question is it really worth it? But coming up next, is this the kind of name that the Cardinals need to go make a splash for? Because a big name from the Mariners has come out. Should the Cardinals go after him? That's next here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN has your chance to win a pair of single-day passes for the BMW Championship, August 18th through the 23rd at Bellerive Country Club, including access to the Trophy Club presented by Michelob Ultra. See the top PGA players in the world compete while enjoying the Trophy Club presented by Michelob Ultra, located alongside the 7th green, featuring shaded seating and indoor lounge, a variety of food and beverage options for purchase, including off-site parking and shuttle service and more. Find your chance to win that pair of single-day passes for the BMW Championship at Bellerive Country Club, including access to the Trophy Club presented by Michelob Ultra Superior Light Beer. Right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app. KMOXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario, BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. I believe we got the YouTube stream back up and running, so you can check us out over there at 101 ESPN STL on YouTube. Studio Cams brought to you by Air Alliance Team. And you also have the Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. Trade deadline day, still no moves have been made by the Cardinals, but deadline is at 5 o'clock St. Louis time, so we'll keep you posted on anything that may go down or does go down between now and 2, and then the Fast Lane guys will carry you up until 5 o'clock. So a little over 30 minutes ago, this piece dropped from Mark Craig, Ken Rosenthal, Will Salmon, and Jason Stark. What we're hearing around Major League Baseball, and the first piece on this article is George Kirby next. I'm just going to read a little snippet of this one. Executives who have spoken with the Mariners say they have been actively listening over the weekend on both Kirby, who has 2+ years of control, and Emerson Hancock, who has 4+ years of control. An executive of one of the club engaged in these talks told The Athletic that the Angels trade of Soriano so early on deadline day opens a clear window for Seattle, with either Kirby or Hancock now looming as the best available starter for multiple years of control. Rival clubs still believe Hancock is more likely to get traded than Kirby, judging by the huge price tag that the Mariners have placed on Kirby, but the consensus is that it would be a surprise if Seattle doesn't trade at least one of them before the deadline arrives. That's from Jason Stark over on The Athletic. So, T-Bone, we have talked a lot about Ivan Herrera's name being out there connected to the Seattle Mariners. We've talked about Emerson Hancock, but George Kirby's name popping up over the weekend kind of perked up all of our ears. Is this the type of splash that the Cardinals should actively pursue? George Kirby, I think Emerson Hancock for all of us is a little bit lower down on that tier chart than where George Kirby is, because Kirby is a legit front of the end rotation starter. He's having a down year and still has a 3.7 ERA. Like, this guy's great. He's got good swing and miss stuff. It's 28 years old. He's got 2 years of control. This is the type of guy that you look at and you say, that's who's leading our rotation for the next 2+ years.
Yeah, Kirby's one that I would be making calls on and seeing what that price is. Now, I think it's exorbitant to where I think you're probably talking like potentially Liam Doyle, Joshua Baez, probably even Rynel Rodriguez are guys that are in that package. So I think that's why you won't see the Cardinals make that move. But if I could put like Doyle and Baez in that, I probably would. I mean, you're right. I mean, even though he's in a quote-unquote down year, the guy's still a stud at 3.76. He misses bats for the most part in his career. This year it's a little bit down, but he's got a ton of control left. I mean, you look at what he's got left, you're talking about 2.5 years of control left,
he's
right?
A free agent in 2029.
Yeah, you get him for the rest of the season, which is, whatever, right? He's going to go in there, he's going to eat some innings for you. And then for the next 2 years, you've got this guy on the books, and if you've got Quinn Mathews that gets to his, finds his stuff at the big league level faster than expected, now you're talking about those two as a 1-2 combo before maybe some more reinforcements come. I would have serious interest in it because the pitching side is where the Cardinals are definitely light at the major league level. And for as much as I like some of the pieces they have in their system, the only guy I think that could potentially be a number 1 or 2, Kirby-esque, would be Doyle. And if I'm moving him to go get already an ace, I'm willing to take that sacrifice, right? The only piece I wouldn't want to move on from is Rodriguez. I think that guy is special to where he wouldn't be in any trade conversation. If the Mariners said, hey, he's got to be a part of it, I'd say, well, we had a good 10-minute phone call, didn't we, Dipoto? But I think you have to call about Kirby, right? Heim said on KMOX over the weekend, hey, we have to be open to things, right? If special players become available, we kind of have to maybe be in on those. This is a special player. This should be a guy, if he's actually available, you have to pick up the phone and call if you're Heim.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. There's a little bit of hesitancy for me because, only 2 years, you asked the question, are they going to pay this guy when he becomes a free agent and he's 30 years old? I'd be skeptical of that. I just don't know how Heim operates in terms of wanting to pay pitchers. I know the Cardinals historically haven't been somebody that's wanted to do that unless it's somebody that profiles well. But under the belief, what we talked about last week of if they believe their window opens in 2028, I have George Kirby for 2028 and 2029. And if I believe that's my winning window, or at least where it starts, And you're telling me I can have a 29 and 30-year-old pitcher who is a legit, I don't know if I'd call him an ace, but I'd say a number one. This is a guy that will lead the front end of your rotation, and you backfill it with all of the guys in your pipeline. We always talk, T-Bone, you are the guy that leads the charge of this. If you want to win the World Series, you have to have elite pitching. That's how you start it with a guy like George Kirby. Now, the question comes, what are you paying for it? And the thing for me, do the Mariners want a pitcher in return? Like, they've got tons of pitching in their system. I don't know if they're desperate for pitching as much as they're desperate for bats.
That's why my fear would be they would want Rodriguez in that package. I mean, they're going to, if you're giving up 2.5 years of control, I mean, you're going to have to give up at least.
But would Herrera make more sense for them than Rodriguez? Because Herrera helps now.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And, I wonder how they feel about adding major league power from the right side now, because they just acquired Taylor Ward from Baltimore.
Yeah.
So, do they view him as the answer to that question? Are they still kind of stuck in the middle? Because, there are reports over the weekend that they might listen on Randy Arozarena, which honestly makes some sense.
Yeah, I'd take Herrera over Arozarena any day of the week.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, it's a fair question if they're open to taking a guy like that.
Because you go through the major league roster. I don't think there's use for Burleson on that team because they've got Josh Naylor.
Agreed. Yeah, they don't need a left-handed bat. They need a righty.
You're not trading Walker.
Or they did need a righty.
You're not trading Weatherholt.
Yeah.
You're not trading Nootbaar because he's not the righty for you. And then it gets down to, does Baez intrigue them more? Because it's an outfielder that has pop. I just look at it and say, if you're the Mariners and you're Topoto, you're trying to win now. Rodriguez doesn't help you win now. Maybe he helps you next year. Realistically, you're probably 2 years from him helping, and then that window opens up. Now, you don't turn down Rodriguez if you're Seattle, but could a package of Herrera and Baez be the starting point for a guy like George Kirby? And honestly, if that's where it is, and that's just my tinfoil, I'm all in on that. And I know it's crazy to talk about trading Herrera, and you don't want to give up Josh Baez. I'm getting a controllable number one for my rotation moving forward. With the exception of Rodriguez, because I'm with you there. Rodriguez, Walker, and Weatherholt, that's my nose. Everything else is a yes. And this is something that I think is smart for Heim to pursue, because this matches up with the window that they're reportedly looking at, 2028.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say that I wonder about the Mariners is, if you're trading Kirby, are you not kind of retooling on the fly? And the reason I bring that up is, maybe then they do look for something that's a little further away, like a Rodriguez in return or a Baez in return. The other thing that I don't know is, as much as we say 2028 is the year for the Cardinals to contend, and that seems to be what they must be telling people since it's the big year that they've been putting on it in all reports. Do they really view a guy that's a pending free agent as actually helping them in that point, or do they want more control?
That's my concern.
If they're looking for more control, then they're just not going to be buying a starter at the deadline, right? They're going to be looking more for prospects that come in and have 6 years of control, compared to this guy who we're talking about as 2.5. And though every team should want him in baseball, if you feel like 2028 is just the start of your contending window, well, you don't want to have a number one that's there for a year, right? You want a guy that's going to be at the top of the rotation for multiple years. And the answer to that is probably Liam Doyle's the guy that they view as that. And that's why they may not decide to make they probably won't make this move, because the prospect capital you're going to have to give up. If Soriano went for a top 50 prospect and 2 lottery tickets, then Kirby's going to be worth more, because Kirby's been a better pitcher over his career so far than what Soriano had been for the Angels.
Yeah, I think the guy, if you want controllable starting pitching, the guy you're looking to float out there is Ivan Herrera. That's the question you have to ask. If you want a pitcher that you envision being the front of your rotation, you got to be okay with trading Ivan Herrera or Alec Burleson, because I think those are the two pieces that are going to get it in return that doesn't hurt your pipeline. But the question will be, does another team see value in giving up somebody that is at the major league level that can help them win now for a player that you're bringing in to put on the major league roster? Those are rare trades you see happen at the deadline. Those are more offseason trades, which does make you kind of wonder, is this something that they pick back up in the offseason? The Mariners have already had deals with each other, or the Mariners and the Cardinals have already had deals. They understand kind of how each other works. If they don't get the job done and they're still looking for that bat, do they go back to the table and say, now let's pursue? I don't think Emerson Hancock makes sense for the Cardinals, because to me, he's more in line of what you have in your system versus what a George Kirby is, where it's the front end of your rotation starter.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind Hancock, but I'm with you. He's not like my number one target.
And I'm not giving up Herrera
exactly, because I watched his start the other night when they went up against the Mariners. I can see why people like him. I mean, the stuff is disgusting, but it's like, a better Lance Lynn with his stuff. And what I mean by that is he basically just throws fastballs. He has a curveball that he's willing to use, but because he just throws fastballs, he's not going to get a lot of chase in his career. He's going to generate some swing and miss, but probably not as much as you would like since he's not getting a ton of chase. I just wouldn't bet on him in a Ivan Herrera deal. Now, if they wanted to do a swap, and I don't even know what it would look like, for example, but if they wanted to make a trade where you give them some prospects in return for him, sure, then I'm more open-minded to it depending on the name. But I'm with you. He's just blah for me.
Yeah.
I don't have much interest, but it's going to be fascinating because there's some real arms out there on the market, supposedly, if you buy the reports. I mean, you're talking Kirby, who we've talked about, Emerson Hancock, who we've talked about for a while, Reed Detmers, it sounds like, is still out there, and now the Texas Rangers are floating Mackenzie Gore with a year and a half of control left, and he's a pretty solid arm. I don't think he makes sense for the Cardinals, A, for his lack of control, and B, he's like a number 3 starter, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there are some real names out there at this year's deadline. Last year was a total dud when it came to trading for starting pitchers. I think the only one that got moved was Merrill Kelly. This year looks so much better already. It looks like a buyer's market for starting pitching.
Well, we have at least a trade that is set, needs the approval according to Buster Olney. The Red Sox and Orioles have a deal arranged for Adley Rutschman, prospects medical set. Red Sox just need to say yay or nay. So, T-Bone, I'm going to call a little bit of an audible here. We'll push Dustin May to 12:30, but coming up next, it's time, because there's been a lot of stuff going down and potentially more that's about to happen for an MLB trade deadline. Roundup! Yeah! 101 ESPN.
The Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
You might have heard Doug Voss and Safe Money Radio. His shows have been on several radio stations for many years. Now he can be heard every Sunday from 10 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. He is super excited to get to the ESPN audience as he is a huge St. Louis sports fan. Doug is an expert at minimizing the impact of market volatility on his clients' assets. So catch Safe Money Radio every Sunday at 10 a.m. on 101 ESPN. Doug Voss is a registered representative. Securities offered through D.H. Hill Securities, LLLP, member FINRA and SIPC.
Why wait to build when you can move in now? For a limited time, save up to $30,000 on a brand new move-in ready T.R. Hughes home. That's right. Incredible savings, no construction wait, and the keys to your new home sooner than you ever imagined. Visit trhughes.com for details.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
A Monday edition of Major League Baseball trade deadline roundup. Bradford was really excited to put that hat on.
Yeah,
he asked me 3 times, and he was like, "Do you want to wear it?" And I'm like, "Brody, you take that hat and you put it on."
Oh,
proudly.
he did that when I just left to get water?
So yeah, he was like,
man.
"You wanted to?" And I said, "No, man, you wear
I'll
it."
still have to sleep in the office. And he comes in and he goes, "Are we doing a roundup today, partner?" And I'm just like, "Oh, Bradford, I haven't had my cup of coffee."
Best part of my day. I don't know what it says about yours truly. I don't.
You're still culprit number 1 of taking the other hats and bringing them back to your house.
Well, you know what? I'm still sorely missing the bandana, too. Where's my handkerchief?
Dude, I don't know. But
Where is it? Where's the hanky?
I think you took all of them back for some hanky-panky. Anyway, let's get into some Major League Baseball trade deadline roundup here.
Well done.
We'll start with the first one that I said Buster Olney reported on, and it's come out from a couple of others. Now, this is not an approved trade because they're waiting for medicals, and they also need to give the full go-ahead. But Buster Olney reporting that the Orioles and Red Sox have a deal in place for Adley Rutschman. Right now, the second biggest trade I would say that goes down at the deadline at this point, T-Bone, right behind Tarek Skubal, because one, Red Sox going for it because of what they've done here. You're bringing in a massive piece in Adley Rutschman, who we've talked about on this show if it made sense for the Cardinals. I'll be fascinated to see what the return is here, because now, and we talked about this, the fallback option happens. The teams that miss out on this catcher, do they turn their attention to, I would say, Colorado's catcher that we talked about with Goodman, and then they go to the Cardinals and circle back on, is Ivan Herrera available? If not Ivan Herrera, Jimmy Crooks. How far down to the pipeline go? I think the next catcher that will be moved after Rutschman will be somebody from the Cardinals team.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I think one name that will probably jump ahead of them is Stevenson from the Reds. I think Stevenson's a little bit ahead of Pages and Herrera, just because I'm not sure Herrera's actually available. Same with Goodman from the Rockies. I don't think he's there. But you're right. I think, as we said in the open, I think the Cardinals right now are waiting for some of those bigger names to fall off the market. We'll get a little bit into this as we go through the roundup here. But I think right now the Cardinals are that second team on a lot of teams' radars right now. If I can't get whoever I want, if I can't get Robbie Ray or Casey Mize, boom, I pivot to Dustin May. If I can't get Rutschman, which it doesn't sound like it since he's going to the Red Sox, all right, we'll settle for that defensive catcher and we'll trade for Pedro Pages. I think that's where they're at right now. But, I mean, the Red Sox are ultra aggressive right now here at this deadline, which is, I think they may try and pull off something big here with one of the shortstops on the market as well.
Well, and that's what the report was, too. C.J. Abrams was somebody that they were calling about. Now, I don't know if you're going to have the prospect capital to go get both of them, but, man, if you're the Red Sox and you go get Rutschman and C.J. Abrams, have they made a trade for a starting pitcher yet? I haven't seen one, so that's the other one.
I don't think they're looking for starting pitching.
They're not looking for starting pitching?
There's all kinds of reports coming out of Boston. It sounds like they think they're going to be healthy by the time they get to October.
Now, speaking of health, though, honestly, can we guarantee that the return of Rutschman is imminent? I mean, you're going on a rehab assignment, and honestly, with all due respect, even though, yes, he obviously has the skill set there, the outlier month, average-wise, production-wise, was April for him. I still don't know, honestly, if he's going to get back to that rarefied air of a couple of years ago. It's intriguing.
It's a gamble, without question. I mean, we talked about it on this show, that if it's something worth the Cardinals going after, and I think T-Bone and I were both skeptical versus BK was the one that was a little bit more confident, but you're getting 2 years of control with him, and I think that's the important part. And if you believe you can get it back to what you need, that's a guy that does make a difference to your lineup. So he's tied, at least locally, to the Herrera side of things. Now you get to the Nootbaar side of things. And this was from Derek Gould's reporting that the Astros, Phillies, and Yankees have all shown an interest in Lars Nootbaar. Now, since the Phillies have traded for Luis Arraez, Bryce Harper's going to the outfield, so I don't know what their level of interest still is on an outfielder. But the Astros, the Yankees being some of them, and then another snippet from The Athletic on Lars Nootbaar. Left-handed hitter is among the most prominent names being discussed within the Astros front office. Nootbaar is of interest to Houston. Whether the Astros can meet St. Louis's asking price is another matter. One source described the Cardinals' ask as astronomical, which does not bode well for a club short on prospect capital. Houston has just 2 consensus top 100 prospects. Though Houston does not have a prospect capital, it does have a cadre of controllable young pitching that could appeal to other clubs. So Nootbaar is the other big name out there. And T-Bone, you brought this one up during the break. Another guy that might be holding up the Nootbaar market is Kyle Stowers from the Marlins. He, according to John Heyman, is available for a big price. So a little bit of a bidding war. My guess is teams are going to value going after Kyle Stowers, younger, more control versus where Lars Nootbaar is at. But I think that's going to be the domino you're waiting to fall before Lars Nootbaar gets moved. But it makes sense if they're setting the price high. That's what Heim did with Brendan Donovan. You set it high and you let somebody match it.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Nootbaar, this is that piece that we're talking about. I think you're spot on. I think it is Stowers that we are waiting to see if they end up moving on from him. Now, I don't think they will because you just mentioned that the Astros don't have a ton to give up. Well, they're connected to Stowers. Well, if they don't have enough to give up for Nootbaar, they definitely don't for Stowers. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's controllable till 2030. He's going to go for a haul if he gets moved at all.
Right.
I don't think he's getting moved. The teams that are in this outfield market that are looking for a left-handed bat, Padres, Astros. I don't think they've got the assets to do it. I think they're both calling the Marlins, seeing if they can make something happen, and then they're going to realize here probably in the next half hour or so, all right, we can't really make this happen. How about we give Heim a call? I think Nootbaar is going to end up, my guess is San Diego, but I think it's going to be one of San Diego or Houston. I think those are one of the 2 teams he's going to be playing for.
And I think Houston makes a ton of sense. I think San Diego, you're hoping stays in it because how desperate do they get before the deadline hits? And Dombrowski's a wild one, so... Or not Dombrowski, Preller's a wild one. So you get to the final whistle, no trade has been made. That's when you come matching the asking price of what Chaim Bloom is looking for. So Lars Nootbaar is the other one you kind of keep a note on. Again, we mentioned at the top of the show, John Morosi reporting that Alec Burleson was one of the most sought-after players right now at this deadline. Makes sense. I don't know how you feel on this one, T-Bone. I just don't think this is going to happen. I think the Cardinals are basically saying, look, you give us back a 4 to 5 year controllable ace or infielder that could play the third base position, we'll listen. Like, I think if the Cardinals want Jackson Holliday, Alec Burleson's name's the starting point. The real question is, will another team bite on Alec Burleson and match the price that Heim's asking for?
See, I don't even think Burley fits Baltimore. I mean,
Probably
they got Pete
not.
Alonso at first base, so they don't need a first baseman.
Burley can be an outfielder. We saw it.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals told you that by their actions, not an outfielder.
The Cardinals did. But what about the Orioles?
They're not they are pretty poorly run, but
it's not a well-oiled machine at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that report. I think I said this in the open. My guess is that name's being floated out there because teams have leaked to Morosi, hey, we're calling about Burley. I don't think the Cardinals are actually going to move him, right? I don't know that necessarily means they view him as part of the core because he plays a non-premium position at first base, and he's going to be a free agent in 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. But I would say this. He's one of the best hitters against right-handed pitching. I think the Cardinals are going to say, hey, this guy's never going to outprice himself. We can price sign him to an extension. We'll listen on him just because it would be malpractice if we don't, since we are sellers at this year's deadline. But nobody's going to blow their socks off to make that move happen. My expectation, Cardinals are listening on Burley. They will not trade him. I expect he will be a Cardinal, and he'll be in the starting lineup tonight against the Yankees.
So on the starting pitching,
a Burley bomb
in New York, just to make them say, wish you would have had it.
That short porch? I mean, come on.
Read my mind.
You're just going to make them wish they could have had it,
I know we don't care about the games anymore, but come on, a Burley bomb.
Just give us some of the prospects, and we'll care about this one. On the starting pitching side of things with our Major League Baseball roundup, you've seen a lot of these names already go. We've already mentioned Tarek Skubal and given our thoughts. If you missed it, you can check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, which is brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. But over the weekend, we saw Luis Castillo get traded, which was a little bit of a surprise considering the White Sox took on all of that contract.
That was something.
On top of that, you had the Rays acquiring Freddie Peralta, Kevin Gossman going to the Chicago Cubs. So a lot of starting pitching. Jose Soriano is the most recent one that was traded from the Angels to the Blue Jays. So you're starting to see the list of these teams dwindle in the Dustin May market. Now, I think the Phillies are probably still in that conversation. The Padres are there. Maybe the Astros are there. There's still plenty of teams that are calling about starting pitchers. Is there anyone on the market, T-Bone, that you feel like is a domino before Dustin May falls?
I think Robbie Ray and Casey Mize. And honestly, I'll just circle Casey Mize because he's a righty. They could be, if you're looking for a lefty, you probably just circle Robbie Ray. I think Casey Mize is the first piece you got to wait on here for the Dustin May market to kind of develop. It sounds like any team that we've seen connected, Philadelphia's still looking for a veteran starter. It sounds like San Diego's looking for a starter or two. Robbie Ray and Casey Mize are the first names that get brought up. So I think the Cardinals are currently having to wait out those markets. Those guys will be traded, and then depending on where they land, that's when you'll see the Cardinals market probably really pick up for Dustin May. My expectation, May will not be traded during our show. I think he's probably a move that happens in the final hour of the deadline.
And then what about the bullpen arms? Because it has been, I guess, active to say the least with bullpen. Maybe not as active as we thought, but Brooks Raley, Brent Suter, A.J. Minter was traded. That feels like that to me is going to be the last-minute deals that go down, too, of seeing Stanek, Romero, maybe Soriano, maybe O'Brien, but
maybe Brule.
But really, I think we're talking just Stanek and Romero right now.
Yeah, again, I think, unfortunately for the Cardinals, I think they're waiting on the Mets blow up to end first.
And they're apparently looking to move like 5 more people off their roster. 2
or 3 of those are bullpen arms. I think 2. Weaver's one of them for sure. I think teams are waiting to see how that plays out. And then you probably start to see a shift towards, okay, what would it cost to get an O'Brien or a Soriano from the Cardinals? Because they've got control. Those deals are going to cost a little bit more. I'm with you. I think if they're going to... I think they're going to trade JoJo and Stanek. Those are probably like last-minute deals, right? I wouldn't be shocked if you don't see that one kind of trickle through your phone past 5 o'clock. When they've sent all the paperwork to the office, it takes a while for it to leak out after the deadline.
One thing I wanted to ask, T-Bone, before we wrap up this roundup here, the trade that we saw go down with Soriano.
Yes, sir.
They got number 39 prospect in the top 100, that Namala, I believe. I might be butchering the name. And that's Soriano with 2+ years of control. Does that spark your interest anymore of trading Leahy or Palante? And I don't know. I don't think those two are on the same level because Soriano's got at least more of a track record, although Palante's probably right in line with it. More swing and miss stuff than those guys. But because you saw that go for a controllable starting pitcher with great numbers, does that make you want to trade any of those guys a little bit more than what it was previously?
Not really, because I don't know that they play into... I don't know that trade plays into those guys' markets. And the reason I say that is Soriano's got a little bit more upside, right? I mean, the Blue Jays are probably viewing him as their number 2 starter next year. No team across baseball is going to value Leahy or Palante as a number 2. I mean, I'd be shocked if that was the case. And Soriano's got more strikeout stuff. I think his curveball grades out as the best curveball in baseball. So, yeah, they were going to get a top 50 prospect for him in return. I don't know that you're going to see a team trade for Palante or Leahy at the deadline just because teams that are looking for those more back-end starters, those like 3, 4, 5s to kind of fill out their rotation, maybe get a guy that starts a playoff game, they're just going to go to the rental market, right? They're going to circle Mize, they're going to circle May, they're going to circle Robbie Ray. Maybe there's a name I'm forgetting on that list. They're going to circle those guys. Clay Holmes, the one that's available from the New York Mets. Yeah. They're going to circle those guys. They cost less. So I would be shocked personally if Palante or Leahy are traded.
Now, on the other side of that with the starting pitching market, we saw another trade go down over the weekend that at least makes you a little more skeptical of trading Dustin May. If this is the return, is it worth the Cardinals moving Dustin May by 5 o'clock today? We'll get to that on the other side, as that'll do it for this edition of Major League Baseball Trade Deadline Roundup here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Listen to 101 ESPN on demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Redbird Salvage Series up north. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns, your Sports Center update. It's supplied by Universal Windows Direct. The Cardinals defeated Toronto 5-1 on Sunday, avoiding a 3-game sweep. Jordan Walker drove in 2 runs, while Matthew Liberatore logged 6 scoreless frames. Tonight, STL invades Yankee Stadium. First pitch scheduled for 6:05 p.m. Also nearing MLB's trade deadline at 5. Philadelphia has acquired Luis Arraez plus lefty Brooks Raley from San Francisco and New York, respectively. Weekend activity, even more seismic. Tarek Skubal joining NL West leading Los Angeles. Our post-Fast Lane special will recap every major move. BK, Tanner going live with their Redbird Report Spectacular. This Sports Center update was delivered by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So over the weekend, Chicago Cubs made a deal for Kevin Gausman, starting pitcher who free agent after this year, been fine. But the Cubs desperately needed pitching help on their rotation side, and they go out somebody that can eat innings for them, which is good. Eerily sounds like kind of what Dustin May has been this year. He's been really good. He's got an option, but that gets negated wherever he gets traded, if he gets traded. And basically it's a, hey, great if you stick around. If not, you walk into free agency. So basically a rental for teams that acquire Dustin May. The Blue Jays in return got a AAA outfielder, Brett Bateman, and a high A shortstop, Ty Southesine. You think I'd struggle with these names like Finnish names and Russian names? No, I struggle with baseball last names. But regardless, Major League Baseball Pipeline had them at number 13 and 21 rated prospects in the Cubs system. Fangraphs 30 and 33. Bateman basically seems to be your prototypical fourth outfielder, and the shortstop, kind of like a Thomas Ajayci. Correct me if I'm wrong here, T-Bone, but a utility piece that can come up, can hit the ball, try and get on base. That's all he's ever going to be.
Pretty much.
That's what they got in return for a rental starting pitcher who was having a fine season. Look at it and say, am I okay with getting that for Dustin May? Because we've talked all season long about what you could get in return and what Dustin May could do for your pipeline in terms of progressing it forward. And we've argued back and forth. Fans have argued, is it worth just keeping Dustin May? And I have fallen on the side of get whatever you can for him because he's of no value to your future. The pieces you get in return are. Well, now you got concrete evidence, T-Bone. A fourth outfielder and a utility infielder for a guy who is going to cost you $20 to $23 million if he stays. If he doesn't go, you're getting a comp pick, which is essentially a second-round draft pick. I've laid all that out to say this. I'd rather just keep Dustin May. I don't think it makes sense to go trade for another fourth outfielder, another infielder. None of these guys are top 100 prospects. None of these guys you can even squint to say, yeah, he could be a part of something for you when you're trying to win in 2028. No, all you're doing is hoping you strike lightning in a bottle for a guy that becomes a Cardinals X factor with devil magic. And I'd rather just keep Dustin May. For where your pitching's at next year, I'd rather have a guy who can go out there and pitch 150 to 180 innings, be good, and if he's here, try and trade him again and see if somebody's desperate for Dustin May. Where do you fall on this?
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to see how this market plays out because you mentioned the Cubs one. I mean, you can even look at it as another example for a rental starter in Freddie Peralta.
Yeah, that's a really
that
good
got
one.
traded. Because, I mean, you look at Peralta and they gave up, the Tampa Bay Rays did, they gave up 3 prospects. They gave up Aiden Smith, who's a light-hitting outfielder in high A, Emilian Petrie, who is a former second-round pick as an infielder, having a pretty solid year in Double A. He's probably the prize of this deal. And they also got a starting pitcher in Gary Gill-Hill, who's starting pitcher but doesn't have much strikeout stuff. So, like, they didn't get a ton in return. But, you know, the Mets were viewing that clearly as this is better than the qualifying offer that we could put on Freddie Peralta. You know, same for the Blue Jays. Now, I think the Blue Jays clearly thought they had a deal done for Soriano. Otherwise, I don't know if they make this move and they potentially are doing what we're talking about here with May and just saying, we'll just attach the QO to him. I'm 50-50 on this because though, yes, all those pieces that we read off don't sound like superstars that you're going to get in return for Dustin May, or like even guys that you can like pencil in as, hey, this is going to be a guy that ends up like being our future starting center fielder, right? That hits like sixth in our order, whatever it might be. If you would get a utility infielder for him, and then let's say you got a fourth outfielder for him, I'd say that's probably a pretty solid win for the St. Louis Cardinals, because there would be some serious risk to potentially running it back with Dustin May next year, right? Mm-hmm. You can attach a qualifying offer to him if he declines his mutual end of the option. So, yeah, you probably end up paying a little bit more than what it is. So you're right, about $20 to $23 million, somewhere in that range. May's a guy that has injury history, right? You could pay him that money, end up not trading him at all, and he gets hurt and misses a bunch of time next year, and then you literally just had him for 2 years and got no assets in return. Now, some would argue that, well, that's okay. We got Dustin May for a year, but in a rebuild, I think you're just in asset accumulation mode, right? So I would actually still be open to trading him, even though these returns don't look sexy. I think you have to pull the trigger if you're Chaim Bloom. I think he's waiting on the market to develop, and then I think he will trade him ultimately because they are still trying to accumulate assets. And maybe that fourth infielder or utility infielder and future fourth outfielder you acquire, maybe you use those as assets to go get something for you in 2 years rather than saying, well, we hope that these guys end up being major league contributors for us.
It's very possible. And for all I know, Chaim's able to squeeze more out of that lemon than what the Blue Jays did or than what the Mets did. And the Mets, understandably so. I think the Mets are just trying to get rid of everything possible on their roster, not trying to get... I think they're going more quantity over quality, more so than where the Cardinals are at. I think they're looking more quality versus quantity. My only thing is, if this is the best you can get in return, 4 years from now, let's say nobody else values these pieces, you can't trade them, they're just on your roster. Isn't that the same as not getting anything for 2 years of Dustin May? And yes, you're right, there's injury risk, but you're looking at $20 to $23 million. And we got two texts on the Air Comfort Service text line. One saying, sign Dustin May to a 2 to 3 year deal. Other one saying, I would not keep Dustin May. No way in hell I'm not paying him $20 to $23 million. So the fans are very divided with terms of Dustin May on where you're at with keeping him versus trading him away. My only thing with that is, what's my rotation next year? It's Quinn Mathews, Hunter Dobbins, I'd argue Kyle Leahy, Michael McGreevy.
Andre Palante.
I don't know. Maybe you could trade Palante in the offseason.
I would say it's probably one of Leahy or Palante. I would lean Palante.
Probably if you move Dustin May. But the reason I bring that up is I think I would lean more towards counting on Dustin May doing what he did this year, even if it's for 100 to 150 innings, versus Andre Palante doing this again next year when he gets more expensive. Like, I think I would look at that and say, if Dustin May is here and he gets hurt, well, then you know what? Now your depth goes into system because you hope TK Roby's back, you hope Richard Fitz is back, you hope more guys are promoting themselves to be in a position to do what Dobbins and Quinn Mathews have done. That's the transition of it, but you need somebody that can be there rather than banking on McGreevy, Palante, Leahy, Dobbins, and Mathews next year. So if it's $20 million to me and somebody decides to sign him and you get the comp pick, great. If he's $20 million and he's here, it's a one-year deal. And I think if you're looking to fill that spot in free agency, you're going to be paying $20 to $23 million for a pitcher.
I don't think you are. I think you can. I mean, they've got May for less, right? I mean, if you're going to go a Pello contract, now, yes, you're probably still paying $10 million. But do I want to spend $20 to $23 million on Dustin May? And the reason we're using that kind of range is $20 million, I think, is what his mutual option is. Mm-hmm. Qualifying offer is going to be probably like 22 to 23 if it's a thing still next offseason. But I could probably just go to the market. If I trade May, let's say you move on from him, there's going to be a bunch of guys that are going to look probably for another Pello contracts. And you can go to them and say, hey, we kept Dustin May healthy. We got some real success out of Dustin May. Now, I know Dr. Zander was like, I can't believe we're talking about Dustin May as he's a good pitcher. Look, I get it. His standard numbers are not up to par of where you'd like it to be.
Look at his FIP.
Teams are looking at, and that's an underlying number right there. That's what I was going to bring up. Teams are going to look more under the hood at what his stuff is and
that's
say,
top 10.
Okay, we could bet on this to where this guy, maybe the numbers will actually come more to the mean for him, right? Maybe he will be better for us if he comes to our ballpark. But the reason I bring that up is, okay, so I can get like 2 or 3 lottery ticket prospects, and then I'll just go do next year's version of the Pillow deal, right? Yeah. I've brought up names. I brought this up on the Red Report last week. I think Zach Gallen's a name that's going to be potential Pillow contract guy. If Freddie Peralta doesn't pitch well for Tampa Bay here in the home stretch, he's probably going to be looking for a Pillow contract. You've got Chris Bubich from the Kansas City Royals that's going to look for a Pillow contract. There will be options to go out there and do the exact same thing they just did with Dustin May this upcoming offseason. So I don't think it's necessarily we have to keep Dustin May because we don't have enough arms in our system. If we don't, I think they can move on from him, and then they can just go get another version of Dustin May next offseason.
Yes, and if that's the case, then more power to you. And I just hope that if they move him, you can extract more out of a trade than a AAA outfielder that's no more than Nathan Church and a shortstop that's no more than Thomas Ajaysi. And those pieces are good. You get them in your system, you feel good about it. I just look at it and say the Cardinals are quality over quantity. Can you get one really good piece versus 2 or 3 average pieces in your return? And that's to the point where you can look at it with Dustin May and say, okay, let's move forward with this one. And with Dustin May, I do think there's going to be value when teams strike out on all these starting pitchers. The part that Heim and why I think you're seeing nothing happen right now is patience can pay off for GMs at this time of the year. If you're comfortable with coming back with all of these guys, of if May's back, if Pages is here still, if Crooks is here, or the bullpen arms I can understand some frustration with, because with Stanek and Romero, like, you just got to move it to get anything now versus
they're
nothing.
Yeah, but it's just going to take a little bit.
But I can understand saying, you know what? I'm going to hold out because I don't have to give you what I want unless you give me what I feel is necessary for the return. Doug Armstrong does that a lot, and sometimes we get frustrated with it, but it pays off more times than not. So with Dustin May, I do think there's a sense from Chaim Bloom of, look, you're going to pay my price or we will hold him. And how desperate does a team get when the deadline starts inching closer to 5 o'clock and they don't have a starting pitcher?
Yeah, and I don't doubt that if May gets dealt and we see that deal, I don't doubt there's a chance that we look at it and go, really, that's what they got for Dustin May. Now, what I would put as the cautionary tale on that is Chaim Bloom seems to be a guy that's very good evaluating prospects. Look at the returns they got in the offseason, right?
Yeah.
Mason Molina's been very good for them down at AA. Brandon Clark's interesting, throwing like 100 million miles an hour down there at the high A level. They did fairly well, it seems, last offseason in some of the return pieces that they got in their trades. And even going back to the deadline last year, I know Chaim wasn't technically in charge of it, but we know he was in the room with those conversations. They seem to have done fairly well there as well. There's a chance that we look at that deal and go, man, okay, that's a whole lot of nothing, only to find out that Chaim knew something, and 2 or 3 years later we look back on it and go, hot damn, what a steal for the St. Louis Cardinals. Look at what he did when he traded Christian Vasquez that year that they were kind of in between, right? He traded him for Willie Abreu, one of the best hitting outfielders in baseball right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's gotten all the faith in the world for me, and that's why I'll look at this, and I think there are going to be people, and we'll get into this in the 1 o'clock hour, I think there are going to be a large majority of fans that are frustrated if the deadline passes and you only see a couple of pieces that get moved, or you see guys get moved and there's not a top 100 prospect in there. I think this is different than the Mo era, to where now I give Chaim the benefit of doubt versus Mo. When they make a move, I'd say this isn't going to pay out for the Cardinals well, and you'd already be pre-mad. I can't get pre-mad at Chaim when he's already had some success in pulling off some of these trades. Along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Hey, 101 ESPN has your shot to score a pair of single-day passes for the BMW Championship coming up on August 18th through the 23rd at Belle Reve Country Club. The pair of passes will include access to the Trophy Club presented by Michelob Ultra. See the top PGA players in the world compete while enjoying the Trophy Club presented by Michelob Ultra. Find your chance to win that pair of single-day passes for the BMW Championship at Belle Reve Country Club right now, 101ESPN.com or on the 101 ESPN app. Coming up in 15 minutes, how would you feel if the only moves that the Cardinals make is trading away their rentals? We'll get to that in 15, but coming up next, the Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN.
We're open for business.
Tune in every day this week from 2 to 6 is the Fast Lane broadcast live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring, and presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care, heating, cooling, electricity, and plumbing, a company that I have been using since 2016. My dad has been using since the 90s, and a company that has been making people comfortable since 1926. I had a neighbor that moved in up the street a couple of days ago, and we were talking because he's looking at updating a lot of the different things around the house, and he brought up the HVAC system. I told him, I said, you're not going to find a better company than Classic Air Care. Honest, but also does incredible work, and when you become a customer, always making sure that the customers feel their presence. And that's what they're offering you the opportunity to do. It's called Feel the Love Program. And what this is if you find or believe a deserving member of our community, you can nominate them to win a brand new heating and cooling system at no cost. So a local hero, military vet, teacher, first responder, or someone who's always putting others first, you go to classicaircare.com and you can nominate them and Feel the Love Program on their website. And if they win, they get a free HVAC system from Classic Air Care. So check it out today. Schedule your appointment online. Just do me a favor and tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer is presented by Bet365. With Bet365 early payout, you win even if they lose. Get paid out instantly when your team goes up big, even if they blow the lead later. Bet365. Winning is everything.
Open up the junk drawer, but before we get to what we want to talk about here, T-Bone has a couple of breaking news that popped around, not on the Cardinals side of things, but can potentially be related to the Cardinals. T-Bone?
Yeah, we've talked about the markets are going to have to move before the Cardinals maybe make their first move. So first, I'll start off with a rental starting pitcher on the move. According to ESPN's Jeff Passan, the San Diego Padres are finalizing a trade to acquire left-hander Robbie Ray from the San Francisco Giants. And then on the catching front, we've talked about Rutschman. He's been connected to the Red Sox. That deal's not gone through yet, but according to Jeff Passan, the Rays are trading catcher acquiring Liam Hicks in a trade with the Miami Marlins. So they acquire a controllable catcher that will not be a free agent for a couple of years. He will not hit free agency till 2031. And his season so far, 282, 363, 432, 24% above league average. So I don't know what they are getting in return for him, but that is going to be a haul that they give up for him.
That's either going to make you, as a Cardinals fan, drool on the idea of trading Ivan Herrera, or say, no way I'm trading Ivan Herrera. That's going to make you go one of two ways once you see the return on that. But I want to hone in on the pitcher, because if Robbie Ray is being traded to the Padres, and correct me if I'm wrong here, T-Bone, that leaves at least the team that I've heard reporting connected to the Cardinals with Dustin May is the Phillies, because the Rays have their pitcher, Padres have their pitcher. Who am I missing? There was another one that was connected to Dustin May.
There's been some talk that the Padres might look for another arm. I think the Astros might be shopping a little bit for some pitching. So, Cubs as well, will be in the market for him.
So I kind of crossed the Cubs off for Dustin May. I don't know if they're making inter-division trades.
Milwaukee,
but crazy. Maybe? Well, geez, they're going to need something.
Philly and New York did so.
It's going to be hilarious when Milwaukee does nothing.
I know.
Just does nothing.
Can I be honest? Kind of expecting it.
That's hilarious. But anyway, the Phillies are the one that I'll point to now, wondering if there's a big deal that takes place. Now, I don't know if they need Lars Nootbaar, because they are moving Harper to the outfield and they brought in Luis Arraez. But if there's still interest there, you wonder if a bullpen arm, outfielder, Dustin May, bigger package can go down. We've talked about Dombrowski being a wild man. Maybe that one happens. The Yankees are still looking for the bullpen arms. So there's still a lot of teams out there. But as T-Bone just kind of illustrated there, it's starting to whittle down to where you need to be with 4 hours to go before the trade deadline, which is good news for the Cardinals. Okay, junk drawer time. So we all knew it was going to happen. But on Friday, during BK and Ferrario, BK had this to say.
Be fine by Monday night. You hope. Well, I'll be able to get a flight back here by Monday night. Monday morning, prior to 11 a.m., that one would be a little tougher.
I think you're underestimating the power of the BKO.
Typically, you're not able to leave until like 8-ish for the flights the next day, and there are very limited flights available from either LaGuardia or Newark to St. Louis, especially direct flights.
T-Bone, how much anxiety do you have with all of this?
Quite a bit.
For 6 o'clock, we'll be fine. We'll be able to do a live Redbird report breaking down the trade deadline. That's not going to be a problem. 11 a.m., BK and Ferrario, that one I have a few more questions about.
I love how confident you are with the late one, too, man. When the BKO hits, it does the impossible. So he was in New York over the weekend for a friend's family member funeral, and he told us ahead of time, look, it's going to be tight. He was absolutely correct. We got the text last night at like 11:30 saying, yes, this is going to happen. I'm sitting on the runway, and they literally turned the engine off. He'd been sitting there for 3 hours. Finally, at like 1 or 2 in the morning, he's like, all right, we're getting off, and we have to find a place to stay. But the part that really irked me here, T-Bone, was this guy blamed us.
I know.
This guy went onto Twitter and said, I blame Alex and T-Bone. Why? He was the one that was so confident.
We're the ones who said, hey, man, this is not going to work, right? You're flying late at night on a Sunday.
In New York.
You got to be at work on Monday. No chance this works.
You don't fly.
And especially with the BKO power, right?
That's
it's a menace to society.
If this was you and me, at an airport, we would have been back here by 11.
I could have flown this morning, probably.
I probably would have flew last night. The plane would have been on the runway, and it would have been like, hey, we're having some technical difficulties. We would have waited an hour, and then it would have took off. But the BKO knows no stopping. It has shut down an airport. It has shut down a bridge. It has shut down a radio station.
What bridge did it shut down?
The one in Pittsburgh. They put a construction site over because he went out there. It made Albert Pujols hit 2 home runs in a game.
Well, that one was not bad.
It was a fun one for us, but it was miserable for him.
Cost Missouri a couple of times in the NCAA tournament.
Probably going to cost...
They couldn't beat Miami. They couldn't beat Norfolk State.
Costed the Chiefs when they played against the Cincinnati Bengals.
They can't win a big football game because he's a Missouri fan. Bradford, you would have been covering a playoff game by this point.
Can you imagine?
The Cardinals went into a rebuild.
Yeah.
When he got back, the Blues won a Stanley Cup when he left,
and then he came back and they
went back into another rebuild,
tool or rebuild, whatever we want to call it.
I can't believe this
Chiefs
SOB
have had a dynasty since he's left.
I can't believe he decided to blame us for his magical powers.
Worthy's dealing with a few issues now. My gosh,
what?
Xavier Worthy, minor, but still.
Right. That's right.
I think what's going to happen? He's going to get back here. And he's going to get like uncontrollable. What's that disease that people were getting from eating lettuce? What was that called? Colitis. Thank you, Ryder. He's going to get colitis at 3 o'clock today because he was so confident that he'd be back and ready to go at 6 o'clock for the trade deadline show.
Don't do it, Alex. Don't do it.
And then you two are going to be hosting while he will be in the bathroom.
I don't know. I think that one, he's like seen the reports and has done a good enough job of avoiding lettuce.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it had just become an outbreak, I could have definitely seen him getting it.
Sure.
But that's not a BKO. That's just stupidity.
Until the BKO.
If you're eating lettuce right now, I'm sorry, that's just stupidity.
The BKO doesn't.
I say that as a guy that loves a good salad.
It doesn't hit him because of the lettuce. It hits him because it actually just all of a sudden goes into another food and hits him. I'm just saying, people acting as if the BKO can be stopped.
Cocoa for Cocoa Puffs over there.
Yeah, well, so did apparently us when we said everything will.
No, that one was predictable. I mean, like him saying on air, I bet it'll be fine, was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm. And it will continue to be the most ridiculous thing. If the BKO knows no bounds, make sure that guy understands that if he blames us because of his powers, he's the crazy one.
For real, this is why I all but set up a cot in the back. You just have to be
Bradford
prepared.
will just be living here for the next 2 weeks. With Bradford Bruns and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. You will hear that trade deadline show later on this evening at 6 o'clock with Bradford, T-Bone, and yes, Brandon Kiley. For all we know, he is on the airplane, in the air, on his way back to St. Louis. So if you see him at the airport, tell him congrats on the BKO. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll take a little bit of news and notes around Major League Baseball. But coming up next, how would you feel if the only moves that the Cardinals make by 5 o'clock today is trading away their rentals? Starting to be a little bit more realistic. We'll discuss that next year on 101 ESPN.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. WXOS HD1E St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan. Over 1,000 vehicles in one location. They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So we have talked about tons of different options that the Cardinals could trade, from Dustin May to all of their bullpens armed to Alec Burleson and Ivan Herrera. And as we are 3 hours and 50 minutes away from the deadline being buzzer going off, the Cardinals still have made no trades. Now, I don't think it's going to finish that way, but we said at the top of the show, we still believe over 4.5 players will be traded before the end of this trade deadline. But let's take the other side of this. What if it's not? What if the guys that are moved by 5 o'clock are just Dustin May, Ryan Stanek, and JoJo Romero? We've already had some people message on the Air Comfort Service text line of that would be a failure of an offseason or trade deadline. We've had some people say that's what my expectation was all along. So I'm curious where you guys fall on this one. 314-399-9646, our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. T-Bone, you as well. Those three guys are the only ones that are moved. After the deadline, Nootbaar is here, Burleson's here. All four of the catchers are still on this roster, and your bullpen is basically intact with the exception of the 2 rentals. Where are you at?
I think it wouldn't be a failure of a deadline, but I do think it'd be pretty disappointing. I think it would be, depending on the return, right? Like maybe they get a surprise in May and they get a good prospect. I'm not counting on them getting anything that's overvaluable, but we'll see. It would be like a C of a deadline. Mm-hmm. And you know what kind of deadline it would feel like? A Mo deadline from years past.
Uh-oh.
I mean, I think back to that deadline last year. I mean, BK and I were here doing the Redbird Report live, which we'll do again tonight at 6 o'clock. And I'll never forget, both of us were just staring at each other like, can you believe they didn't trade JoJo with a year of control? A left-handed reliever that could help these playoff contenders go up against the Dodgers or some of the best teams in the American League? Like, we couldn't believe it. And they didn't make that move. And I feel that way about O'Brien. You know, now maybe the way he's pitched over the last month and a half has brought some of that value down. I still think you'd get some pretty good pieces in return for Riley O'Brien. Mm-hmm. Based on the fact that it seems like the Astros and the Padres are looking for a left fielder, I feel like you're going to get a decent return for Lars Nootbaar. I wouldn't call it a failure, but it would feel very disappointing. It would feel like what the old regime was. I'm looking for some sort of creativity from the Cardinals. And trading Nootbaar, there should be some good value there. Trading O'Brien, there should be some good value there. Heck, even listening on Soriano, I think would have some good value there out of the bullpen. A guy that's got some control. We've seen those guys get moved a lot at deadlines, and including this one so far. So it wouldn't be a failure, but it would be pretty disappointing if they just moved the rentals.
Bradford, where are you at on that?
I think you can make the argument, honestly, Tanner, to your last point, that Soriano in the second half of the season so far has basically become the most indispensable arm in the bullpen. I think that in a surprise twist, frankly, he could be the one guy to actually be going out. Now, as far as possible returns, I will believe it when I see it, as far as actually fetching something substantial, somebody substantial in return for a Lars Nootbaar, because I've been waiting. You guys know this. I've been on the show before with you guys, and I've talked about how I truly don't know if we can really fathom the value Lars Nootbaar still has around Major League Baseball. The deadline moves so far haven't given me a true indication as to what would be in play for him potentially, and I'm waiting to see in that regard. Ultimately, if you're only able to view the parts that you have right now, the guys going out, not being more proactive, would I be slightly disappointed? Yeah, a tad, but also when gauging what has been given up by these markets, by these other organizations and clubs so far, I'm also not waiting here with bated breath on these ridiculous returns. I think the offseason that was set the table and maybe heightened some expectations for what you could do during the season near the deadline. I'm not going to be crying here if you're unable to offload basically 4 or 5 guys. I never saw that number, that high of a number, being possible overall.
I think it's a miss. I'm not going to call it a failure, because to me, a failure means you screwed up the team. And I don't think that's what you're doing here. If that's all you move, you're basically kicking the can down the road to the offseason. Why I think it's a miss is the same reason I thought it was a miss with Brendan Donovan. The most value these guys have is right now. There was more of the offseason, but you chose not to do it. Once you get to this offseason, yeah, I think teams are still going to be interested, but the uncertainty of what next year is going to look like, and you trading for a guy where you essentially are going to lose a year of that player's of control, you're not going to get the same return back. And the other reason why I think it's a miss is because you have replacements that a rebuilding team needs to get to the major league level. If this was a team that was kind of on the fringe of trying to be competitive, but also trying to kind of turn the roster over, I'd feel a little different. But it's very evident where the team is at, being in a rebuild. And you've got Josh Baez, who I know he has hit his struggles. But Josh Baez, you need to find out what he's at the major league level. Bryson Motts, you need to see what it looks like. You're seeing what Quinn Mathews looks like. You're seeing what Hunter Dobbins looks like. Leo Bernal was just named the, was it the AAA player of the month, or was just the Memphis Redbirds player of the month? Regardless, he's had an incredible month for Memphis. These are all guys that you do need to see get to the major league level at some point. And I would much rather have a longer runway to see what these guys look like from August to the end of the year than on September 1st to the end of year, where you're trying to manage how to play Lars Nootbaar and Joshua Baez. So I don't think it's a failure. I do think it's a massive miss by Chaim Bloom if Lars Nootbaar is still on this roster. I'm not going to put Herrera in that conversation, nor am I putting Alec Burleson there.
I agree.
But I think it's a miss if you keep Lars Nootbaar, and I think it's a miss if you don't try and move off of a couple of other bullpen arms just because, and Pedro Pages. Pages should not be on this roster post-deadline. Those are guys that should be elsewhere to open up the opportunity for other guys in your system.
And Pages is such a small move. Like, if they don't make that happen, which I'd be shocked if they don't, but if they don't, like, they could just go stuff him in AAA, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that one's the end of the world. I'm with you, though. I think it's not Herrera, it's Burley that we're talking about here, because those are just the, hey, we'll take the phone call, we'll see what you offer.
That's Robert Thomas, Colton Parayko deals.
Exactly, right? We're going to listen. I mean, it's our job, right? We have to listen in case you're going to offer, like, your best prospects to us. And based on the return that the Rays I keep flipping these teams around. Based on the return that Miami got in the trade with Tampa Bay, I wouldn't trade Herrera for that. They got 3 of their top 30 prospects, but they were all in that 16 to 30 range. Now, that's a good pipeline, but I think you would need a top 100 prospect to make that kind of a trade happen.
100%. Or you need somebody that's at the AAA level that's going to be at the major league level.
Exactly. And honestly, I don't even know that's enough. I think it had to be a top 100 prospect you're getting in return. Yeah. And based on the reports I'm seeing, it doesn't look like they got one of those. Yeah. But I do think Nootbaar is in this conversation, and I do think O'Brien's in this conversation. Soriano, again, is one of those I think you listen on, and I do think teams will give you a decent return for him, but I don't think he's like a requirement to trade. O'Brien, you're trying to sell high on because, let's be honest, he's a journeyman reliever, and we know how quickly it can go for a reliever like him. Same could also be said about Soriano, I guess. Yeah. And with Nootbaar, typically I would say, hey, you can hold on to him. We can figure this out in the offseason. I do think there could be some urgency here from them because the fact that there may not be an offseason, or at least a shortened one to where there's no winter meetings this upcoming offseason because of the lockout. So I'm with you. I think it would be a bit of a miss by Chaim Bloom in the front office if they don't move off of some of these controllable assets.
Yeah, well, and I won't say it's true because, again, I give him the benefit of doubt for where we're at right now. I do think, though, that if he doesn't pull the move off, does it make you wonder a little bit more about what we were told about Chaim Bloom before he took over, of being a guy who really takes his time to make decisions and maybe takes too much time to make those decisions and misses his opportunity? That's because that was my thought with Brendan Donovan. Now, he pulled it off, and you still got what you wanted in that one.
See, I didn't have a problem with that because I didn't think Donnie they should have traded in the offseason because I wasn't sure where they were going to go.
And that one's more like the Herrera-Burleson conversation.
And I didn't want Mo doing it, to be fair.
Very true as well.
And I know that Chaim was in the room. Mo was the guy that supposedly was calling the final shot.
This is the first deadline, though, that we are seeing Chaim work. And it does make me wonder of what the kind of cautionary tales were from people within the Red Sox and the Rays is, hey, sometimes he is too patient with some of his decisions. And this might be it. You put such a high value on these guys' heads that you don't get anything in return. And then you let it play out and you say, well, you missed your opportunity there. That will be a fear that at least comes into the back of my mind. I'm not going to start vocalizing that because it's his first trade deadline, but it does make you wonder a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's some of that, but it's one of those where it's kind of tough. Is it, okay, he should have made the move, or was there just not enough value out there? Now, my question would be, okay, we seem to see the Astros and Padres, they're looking for an outfielder, so in theory, seems like there should be a market for Nootbaar. Mm-hmm. You know, and then the same could be said, a bullpen arm. Let's be honest. If you're a playoff team, you know what you're trading for at this time? A bullpen arm. Yeah. You know, the Mariners, according to Jim Bowden, aren't done. Apparently, they're looking for bullpen help. All right, well, then in theory, hopefully they're calling you,
got
right?
like 7 of those.
They know O'Brien. He used to be in their system.
You screwed that one up.
I think it will be interesting to see what he has to say later. I'm assuming he's going to hold a press conference. I don't think the Cardinals have announced anything yet. I assume he's going to hold a press conference after the trade deadline is done. I would be curious to see what he says because Mo, I remember last year, was saying, the value just wasn't there for JoJo, which I found hard to believe because it was a left-handed reliever with control. Any playoff team would have interest in him, and that's the same for me right now with Nootbaar and O'Brien. I'd be shocked if no teams are calling them willing to try and meet the asking price for the Cardinals.
So I haven't really seen anything. A couple of people on the text line had said Chris Bubich was traded to the LA Dodgers.
To the Dodgers.
So another...
that was a guy I said, could that be like a pillow contract for the Cardinals? My guess is that they just acquired him to put in the bullpen would be my assumption, or start for a couple games and then DFA.
Carlos Duran was the one that was traded the other way. T-Bone mentioned kind of that Tampa Bay Rays trade that was for Liam Hicks, which doesn't sound like it's a whole lot, just a lot of it. It was quantity over quality. It sounds like it's a lot of their prospects, but none of their top prospects are going away in that deal. So that's kind of where things are at right now at 1:21 with the deadline at 5 o'clock. Coming up at 15 minutes, we'll do kind of a quick look around Major League Baseball of what's gone down today and what could still happen. But coming up next, with Liam Hicks being traded and the return being out there, is it time to finally put this Ivan Herrera trade rumor to bed? We'll discuss that next here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
It's deadline day in Major League Baseball. BK and T-Bone will break down the Cardinals trade deadline. Tune in tonight for a trade deadline edition of the Redbird Report. Watch or listen to a special live episode of the Redbird Report with Brandon Kiley and Tanner Hendrickson. Tonight starting at 6 p.m. on 101 ESPN. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario, BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you're wondering where BK is at, he is en route to St. Louis. His flight was delayed last night. Who could have seen that coming? He will be back for the Redbird Report trade deadline live show tonight here on 101 ESPN, so you can hear from T-Bone, BK, and Bradford reacting to all, or if any, Cardinals trades between now and the trade deadline.
Hour done, right?
God, I can't. This is like when I did a draft show 2 years ago. It was me and Curbs, and we thought they were going to make all these moves, and they drafted Justin Carbonneau, and then we were like, well, and you lasted until pick number 32, and nothing happened. So have fun with that, boys.
I liked this year's show, Justin Bieber taking center stage.
This one was a lot more enjoyable for me. But among the topics we have had is Ivan Herrera, and now we have seen another catcher get moved. So we have seen, well, I guess haven't seen it yet, but the report is from Buster Olney and a couple of others that a deal is in place between the Red Sox and Orioles for Adley Rutschman. It's pending a physical and both sides agreeing upon it, so that one will probably take us up till about 5 o'clock at the deadline. But the one that is completed, the Tampa Bay Rays are trading for catcher Liam Hicks from the Miami Marlins. They traded away their 16th, 26th, and 27th ranked prospects. None of those, by the way, are top 100 prospects, correct, T-Bone?
Correct.
So no top 100 prospect was traded for a catcher who has 5 years of control and has been a pretty good bat for the Miami Marlins this season. The Yankees were the ones that had been interested in a lot of the Cardinals catchers. The Red Sox were somebody that checked in on them. The Rays were the ones that checked in on them. Rays now have gotten theirs. Red Sox have gotten theirs. The Yankees, we just don't know. The report is that they may pivot to Reds catcher Tyler Stevenson. I think it's safe to say for people that were worried, T-Bone, that Ivan Herrera was going to get moved, that deal doesn't seem like it's going to go down. Now, crazier things have been done. Maybe somebody last minute turns to Ivan Herrera and says, we need this guy, bring him in as a DH bat, and a deal can still get made. I think if there's any catcher moved, it's Pedro Pages, and I'm a little skeptical of that one happening. I think there's a realistic chance that Pages, Crooks, and Herrera are all on this roster past 5 o'clock, which may upset some people. To me, it's just looking at it saying, look, we've got Crooks and Herrera. Bernal will be pushing at some point. Pages is irrelevant. We're moving forward with these guys.
Yeah, I'm still going to hold out some hope that they move Pages. Now, I don't think it's going to be for really anything. I think it's just going to help clear up some of that catcher logjam. I just don't know where that spot is. You know, I don't know that the Yankees are going to pivot to him. Now, there's probably a team we're not thinking of, right? Like maybe the White Sox or, you know, Cleveland screams a team that would take a defensive catcher to help them with game calling and value that defensive aspect of Pedro's game. But I definitely don't think we're going to see Ivan Herrera get moved. If Tampa wasn't going to be willing to give up some of their top 100 prospects, I don't think the Yankees are either. I think the Yankees are looking at this going, all right, maybe we can try and get back in on the Adley Rutschman market. Maybe we can try and outbid the Boston Red Sox. Or if we don't, we'll just go get Tyler Stevenson, right? I mean, he's available from the Cincinnati Reds. He's been a guy that's been above league average in his career, 5% above league average. Offensively, he's 8% above league average so far this season. He's just a rental, so he's not going to cost a lot. I think if you were going to trade Ivan Herrera, which I do think they were probably at least listening. You know, again, as we've been talking about, is kind of the theme of the show. You've got to listen on just about everything when you're in sell mode.
Absolutely.
I think they were listening, but I think they held a high price. And I think it was, hey, we need a top 100 prospect coming back. And honestly, probably a guy that's like in that 50 range as a top 100 prospect. That has to be the headliner, and then we can go from there to build out this package. And if the Rays aren't doing it and they're willing to trade Liam Hicks for Liam Hicks, it tells me, A, that one wasn't going to cost as much, so they decided to make that move, or B, teams just aren't going to value that. And Miami just happened to be that team that was willing to kind of pivot while everybody else was going a certain direction. So I don't think you're going to see him traded. I think once I saw this move come through and saw what the return was, it's convinced me, okay, we're not going to see Ivan Herrera wearing a different uniform by 5 o'clock today.
I don't think so either. And again, I think what the Cardinals did with, if they were listening on this, is the right move. You see what's out there. You just haven't seen anything that has happened yet at this year's deadline that has moved the needle in the sense of a team that's in a rebuild is moving the direction forward. And I just don't think those trades happen at deadlines. I do think that's more in the offseason. Now, what's fascinating about this is where the offseason will go and if you're able to make those moves still. Herrera makes sense in the timeline for the Cardinals. Frankly, he makes more sense than Alec Burleson in the timeline of this Cardinals team, and absolutely more than Lars Nootbaar. So you keep that unless something becomes available that makes more sense. I told you, and I kind of compared it to where the Blues are at, like it feels like the Cardinals and Heim are trying to do what Doug Armstrong has tried to do. Get a lot of players that are in that same age bracket, like Weatherholt and Walker, so that everybody is in the same development path together. Now, baseball's different. You need a lot of guys to play a lot of different areas with different age ranges. But there's just not moves that have happened at this year's deadline so far that you look at and say, well, that was a smart move by both sides of trading that piece early to get a lot in return. There's just not a lot in return that's going the opposite direction right now.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before at deadlines. You said it. I mean, you don't typically see a bunch of top 100 prospects get moved. I think we've seen one, maybe two. Maybe there's a move I'm forgetting from over the weekend, but, you know, the Angels got a top 50 prospect in return in their deal for Jose Soriano. You just typically don't see those kind of prospects get moved, and that's why it was going to be it'd be shocking to see Herrera go. It'd be shocking to see Alec Burleson go. A team would almost have to view them as like over the top, right? That gets them to that next level as a World Series contender. I think if there's a team that's going to move on from top 100 prospect, it's probably the Red Sox, you know, and it might be in the Rutschman deal. Or it could be if they try and trade for C.J. Abrams from the Washington Nationals. Those guys just aren't available, and that's why you listen, but a lot of these teams are just going to pivot away from it. And I think that's what you've seen. I think you've seen the Rays pivot, or not seen, they did pivot to Liam Hicks. You know, that's why you saw we've seen some of the outfielders that have been dealt, right? They've been probably talking about Lars Nootbaar. They said, we'll go get a right-handed bat for that instead. The starting pitching market. Teams are starting to pivot, right? Casey Mai is still available. Sounds like Arizona's closing in on him. Once he goes, then you'll probably see those pivots occur to Dustin May.
Yeah, real quick, and I don't know if you saw this one as well, but the Robbie Ray deal is now official. Miguel Mendez and Joniel Hernandez are the expected return for Robbie Ray. Mendez is a 24-year-old starting pitcher who is in A-ball. Having an okay season. He struggled at Double-A, so he's back to high A ball. He is the Padres' number 4 prospect, not a top 100. And then Joniel Hernandez is their number 9 prospect. He's in rookie ball. He also was not a top 100 prospect.
Yeah.
So
and the Padres don't have a lot. I mean,
yeah.
And that goes to show you that their 4th best prospect, not in the top 100, it shows they don't have a ton in their system. But again,
it's another return for a guy that is the pending free agent, right? That is very comparable to what you're getting for Dustin May. So you're getting it back once again. Longer ETA to get to the major leagues. None of them top 100
and
prospects.
All lottery tickets.
And all lottery ticket players. And the question is, are you okay with that if that's what the Cardinals really try and pursue for their guy in Dustin May? The one thing we really haven't seen, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Timo, we haven't seen pending free agent bullpen arms moved a lot, correct? Brent Suter was one, but I don't really think
much.
And AJ Minter had another year of control, correct?
I actually think he was a free agent.
Was he a free agent? I thought he had one more year of control.
But like Duvall was traded, he has control. It's been a little bit of a mix in the bullpen market, but the bullpen market hasn't really moved as much as I was expecting.
AJ Minter is a free agent, so you were right on that one.
But I expect that you're going to see the bullpen market really heat up. It's typically teams are trying to get their quote-unquote bigger moves done, the Robbie Rays, the, go out and get your Joe Adell or whatever it might be. And then in the final, 2 or 3 hours leading up to the deadline, the bullpen market really starts to pick up. I wouldn't be shocked if that market really starts going here in just a little bit.
And again, reminder, somebody brought this one up on the text line, and it's a great reminder. The Jordan Montgomery deal literally was turned in at the buzzer. And that one went past the deadline. So there is still, with 3.5 hours, plenty of time for the Cardinals to make moves. My guess is Chaim Bloom's phone is going to be very active in the last hour of this year's deadline to see if they can pull anything off. With Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, we are going to get into some of the other news and notes around Major League Baseball with the trade deadline, things that went down over the weekend, things that are reported right now that could go down later on, and we're going to give you your opportunity to win a pair of tickets to see Guns N' Roses. All of that next here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
ESPN has your chance to win a pair of single-day passes for the BMW Championship, August 18th through the 23rd at Bellerive Country Club, including access to the Trophy Club presented by Michelob Ultra. See the top PGA players in the world compete while enjoying the Trophy Club presented by Michelob Ultra, located alongside the 7th green, featuring shaded seating and indoor lounge, a variety of food and beverage options for purchase, including off-site parking and shuttle service and more. Find your chance to win that pair of single-day passes for the BMW Championship at Belle Reve Country Club, including access to the Trophy Club presented by Michelob Ultra Superior Light Beer. Right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
All remains quiet on trade front. For now, I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling. MLB's trade deadline officially arrives at 5 o'clock Central Time. St. Louis has still not swung a deal. Elsewhere, though, movement abounds. San Francisco shipping three-time batting champion Luis Arraez to Philadelphia. Cleveland acquiring Joe Adele from AL West worst Los Angeles. John Mozeliak also offloading righty Jose Soriano. He joins Toronto. Speaking of those Blue Jays, they dropped yesterday's series finale against the Cardinals 5-1. Later, Michael McGreevy will oppose Cam Schlittler. Redbirds Yankees unfolding just as our Redbird Report special gets underway. This Sports Center update was powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Well, the most excitement we're probably going to get today, unless somebody pulls off a buzzer beater, T-Bone, Joel Sherman with a little bit of a report bomb while we were in the commercial break. With Ray, that's not the one this is it. With Ray, the Padres still want another starting pitcher. A.J. Preller is just out here being wild right now. They are also focused on a left-handed bat, maybe from the Alec Burleson, Dalton Varsho type group. They've also liked Jarren Duran and at least talked to the Orioles about Jackson Holliday.
And from John Heyman, he mentioned Burley as well, but also Lars Nootbaar among potential targets for the Padres.
So now you're getting into that category that we talked about. All of these guys that are off the market, they turn back to the Cardinals. With Lars Nootbaar, with Alec Burleson, with Dustin May, with your entire bullpen options out there, this is that window where teams call up Heim and say, where are we at with the offers? Because we didn't get what we wanted, and now we need something. And the Padres are fascinating. We were just looking at this. If they're going after Burleson or Duran or Jackson Holliday, what in the hell are they trading? They have one top 100 prospect. It's a catcher. I highly doubt the Cardinals, unless they want to keep stockpiling catchers, are having any interest in that. They don't have another top 100 prospect in their pipe or in the system. And if you go through what they have at the major league level, they're not trading away Tatis. They're not trading away Jackson Merrill. They're not trading away any of their starting pitchers, and they're not trading away their bullpen. If you're buying, what are you selling to teams to go get these big prices? So I'm skeptical that Alec Burleson or Lars Nootbaar gets moved to the Padres, but I guess the real question is how wild does A.J. Preller want to get?
Yeah, and how creative can he get, too? You know, I'm with you. I mean, just seeing this report, I said this in the open because it was kind of a report from John Morosi earlier today. You know, I can't see them with the assets to pull it off because they've traded away most of their top prospects. The only one they've got, like you mentioned, the top 100 is a catcher, so that doesn't make sense for the Cardinals. I would bet they've got the assets to make a Nootbaar deal. That one, seeing that name connected to him, that one makes some sense to me. I think you could see that work out for San Diego. If they're serious about Burley, and my guess on this report is, hey, they called the Cardinals, they asked about Burley, and then they realized they didn't have the asking price for it, but let's just go along the path that they are seriously interested in him. I would think they've got to get a third team involved. You know, I would think they've got to get somebody else involved where some kind of piece would be going from the Cardinals to that other team. Prospect would be coming to the Cardinals from there and the Padres system, and then the Padres end up with Burleson. That's the only way that I can see this happening because I just don't think that the assets are there for them. And Adley Rutschman is going to the Red Sox, according to Jeff Passan. That's going to be official. But the reason I bring that up is we know Preller's creative. We saw Heim in the offseason get creative with the three-team deal that he pulled off with Brendan Donovan, where he got the Tampa Bay Rays involved in that deal. I wonder if that could be in the works, where the Cardinals are trying to work on a three-team trade here if they were to send Burleson to San Diego.
Are we sure they're not going to move Fernando Tatis Jr.?
I'm pretty sure because they're in a playoff spot. I don't think they're going to cut money. And
it's not an upgrade over Burleson.
Exactly. He's not an upgrade.
No, or Nootbaar.
The other thing for Fernando Tatis is ownership, apparently, according to reports, remember, they got sold earlier this year. Sounds like they're going to give Preller some leeway for salary, which would also explain why he's so active today and what he's looking for.
Yeah. So that's kind of where things are at right now, at least on the Padres side of things. But again, they're connected to him. So Burleson, Nootbaar, searching for starting pitching. And then, of course, you got that entire bullpen market that's still out there. One from Mark Feinsand. The White Sox are still looking for help behind the plate and hope to add a catcher in the next 3 hours, per sources. Tyler Stevenson is on their radar, among others, though the Reds have had interest in Stevenson from other clubs, too. I have not seen anybody mention any of the Cardinals catching conversations yet.
Yeah, everybody that you didn't expect to be traded is out there, except for their catchers.
Exactly. But once Stevenson goes, with the exception of the Rockies catcher, which I think the last report was that you're not certain that guy's getting moved, once Stevenson goes, then it's a matter of, okay, who's left over? I don't think that's Herrera or Crooks, but that's where I think the Pedro Pajes thing comes up.
I would add this. The only way I think you could see a team get desperate enough to make the move for Herrera, because, again, I said this last segment, you probably need a top 100 prospect for him.
The Yankees?
The Yankees. Because they just saw Boston load up. Boston is making that a 3-team race right now in the AL East with how well they are playing. The Rays got their catcher. If they don't land Stevenson, who's a rental, and he ends up with the White Sox, who's that guy for the Yankees if they're truly looking for an offensive upgraded catcher? Now, maybe they're not, right? Maybe they end up saying, you know what, wasn't worth it for Stevenson. We'll go get defensive specialists in Pedro Pajes, or we'll take on a project in Jimmy Crooks. If Crooks could find his stride, he'd be perfect for that ballpark. But if there's a team that's going to get desperate to make that move, I would circle Brian Cashman and the Yankees.
And that would be George Lombard Jr. that you're targeting. Now, the question will be, would they trade that guy? But that's not just a top 100 prospect. That's a top 20 prospect in all of Major League Baseball. And it fits what the Cardinals are searching for, a young guy who can play the infield, shortstop, and the third base position. Is that enough, though, to trade Ivan Herrera? I mean, my answer would be yes, but you're trading a certainty over a question. And again, that's a hypothetical scenario that they would be the team that gets super desperate for it. The question would be, is there a higher price set on Ivan Herrera's head to where it's not just going to be that piece that gets it done?
Unless, I guess, if you're the Yankees, and that would be the number one suitor for me, are you willing to entertain the idea of allocating more time at catcher for a Rice? You made the move for Garcia, obviously, over the weekend. You've got a platoon-ish situation there at first base now as well. I don't know how viable that is.
They got a catcher. They got a pitcher, too, that's 72 in the top 100 prospects, Elmer Rodriguez. So, again, you're just trying to get creative with a team that would go after a catcher. I'm skeptical that anything happens with Herrera, but T-Bone's right. Desperation sets in when you see other teams make moves, and the American League is doing that right now. And
the Yankees scream at team that would be desperate.
Especially with the Red Sox getting Adley Rutschman and looking at it.
Like, we're going to see them tonight as the Cardinals start a 3-game set in New York. They're without Judge, they're without Stanton, they're without Bellinger, and they've been kind of flailing in the wind right now because their offense sucks right now.
Well, and I don't think they need starting pitching, but if you're them and you're calling about Herrera, you try and sweeten the pot.
I guess you would probably put a bullpen arm in there.
That would make sense.
If you're a playoff team, you're always looking for bullpen help. Yeah. They traded Duvall away to free up a spot on their roster. Maybe they're looking for like a lefty specialist, right? You could acquire JoJo and Herrera, and you send us the pitching prospect that you had, or that. I doubt they'll move their top guy, but that pitching prospect would be one that could be like the headliner of a deal.
For sure. And then the final one before we hit the break and go to the rewind, per Jim Bowden, the Mariners actively looking for bullpen help. So
give us a call, Jerry DePoto.
You want a lefty, you want a righty, you want a guy that lights up the scoreboard. We got it all. Just let us know what you want. George Kirby for Jared Schuster. Who says no?
Oh, I think we will. Schuster?
Yeah. He's going to be our closer by the time all these guys
are desperate for innings.
Moved.
Who are you going to call?
Jared Schuster. Just as good as No, not Gastelum. Just as good as Ghostbusters. All right, hey, now's your chance to win a pair of tickets to see Guns N' Roses next Saturday night. 101 ESPN has that opportunity. August 16th at Busch Stadium. You can find all the ticket details and a bonus chance to score free tickets for Guns N' Roses right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 ESPN app. If you're texter 101 and send the text to our Air Comfort Service text line at 314-399-9646, if you can tell us what state BKO'd himself in over the weekend, Text what state that was and your Texter 101. You'll win a pair of tickets to see Guns N' Roses next Saturday night. We'll rewind it and put a bow on this trade deadline coverage next year on 101 ESPN.
'Cause I'm leaving on a jet plane.
The 4th of July doubleheader on ESPN. Game 1, Mariners and Blue Jays. Game 2, Cardinals and Cubs. Coverage begins at 2:30. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
If you missed anything from the show today, you can always check it out on our podcast page, 101ESPN.com. Studio Cam is brought to you by the Air Alliance team. The 101 ESPN app is brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. And the podcast is always brought to you by Schaefer Door Company. Didn't have any breaking news on the show today, so I think the Fastlane boys are going to be very busy for the first 3 hours of their show. And then, of course, tonight at 6 o'clock, the trade deadline Redbird Report live show with Tanner and BK recapping everything that goes down later on today. So as we leave this one, the Cardinals haven't made any moves. There's been connections with the Padres that Burleson and Nootbaar's name has popped up. They're still looking for starting pitchers. Bullpen help, of course, is widespread around Major League Baseball, and the Cardinals have plenty of arms. Have not heard Herrera's name. Burleson's name starting to get a lot more heat, according to John Morosi. And T-Bone, you just mentioned that there is a report that the Cubs may have acquired Reed Detmers.
Yeah, there's a report out there from someone that's got 50,000 plus followers
and that's what
with
matters.
Bleacher Nation. Until I see it from Passan or Rosenthal, I'll take it with a grain of salt, but it is an interesting one, and it would make sense. The Cubs supposedly, according to this source, have a deal for Reed Detmers from the LA Angels. Now, we'll see until we see that from more of a reliable source. Would I be willing to know that deal is done? But that would be an interesting ad by the Chicago Cubs if they're able to make it happen. And boy, Mo really wanted to rebuild out there in Anaheim.
Yeah, well, and I mean, look, if that goes to the Cubs, that's good because teams that want the starting pitcher, well, now that's another pitcher off the market, and then you got to turn to Dustin May. So I don't know what's going to happen. I hope we see a lot of moves done by Chaim Bloom where they're at. But one thing is for sure, T-Bone, Cardinals lineups out.
Yeah.
So if you want to play the lineup game,
I'd say turn those mics down for a minute.
Don't be listening out at Centene now.
Also, you guys might be playing 3 different versions of the lineup game today, depending on what happens.
I think I'd wait to do the lineup game in 5.
But the lineup is out, and Burley, Herrera, Nootbaar, Crooks are in it. Guys that are on the block are in the lineup. And again, the reason we bring that up is the Fastlane might be playing 3 of them. Ollie might be making a new lineup later today.
I think 2 of those might not be in the lineup by the
Burley Herrera?
No. Oh. Burley Nootbaar? Nope. I think probably Nootbaar and Crooks would be the 2 I'd bet on.
I would just bet on one. I would bet on it being Nootbaar. Yeah, I don't know that Crooks will get traded. I think that'll be Bob.
That makes sense. All right, before we wrap it up, the Fast Lane's out at Centene Community Ice Center. They'll be coming your way in a couple of minutes. Before we wrap it up here, T-Bone, call your shot. We said over 5.5 players moved off of the roster before the trade deadline. Now with 3 hours left, are you sticking to your guns?
I'm sticking to over 4.5, yeah, like we said, because I think they're going to move May. I think it's just a matter of Mize has to go off the board first. Sounds like Arizona's in on him. I think they're trading JoJo, Stanek. I think they're going to trade Paz. I think they're going to trade Nootbaar. I'll bet, I said this morning, I thought May was going to Philly with Stanek. I'm going to stick to that, and I think Nootbaar will be in San Diego.
Yeah, I'm going to stick to it as well. I think you may see a move where 3 guys are attached in one deal. I do think May goes. I think 2 bullpen arms go. I think Nootbaar is going to be going, and then, of course, you get to that catcher position. So T-Bone, Bradford, and BK will react to it tonight at 6 o'clock. Make sure you're tuned in on the YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL, and, of course, here on 101 ESPN. Shout out to Bradford, who is pulling like triple duty tonight. The man is a legend himself. We appreciate him helping out. I'm Alex Ferrario. He's Tanner Hendrickson. I'll be back with you tomorrow at 11 with the guys. They'll be coming up at 6 o'clock with their trade deadline show. But the Fast Lane from Centene is coming your way next here on 101 ESPN.
You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance team studio cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN studio cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance team heating and cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.